time, Lazarus has returned from the grave.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Bill.
Thank you. Good morning.
You were sure missed.
I doubt that, but it is nice to say that in public. So I stole you $5 for that.
We got some text messages of people missing you.
I severely doubt that, but I appreciate the sentiment.
How you feeling today?
Not 100%, but okay. I felt human for the first time yesterday. It was a neurovirus, so anybody that's had kids understands that means you don't know which end to point at the toilet. So it's pretty much what it is for about 48 hours. So it was awful. And I had seen it run through both my daughters at home, so I knew what was coming, but the first 12, 14 hours are the roughest on this one because it happens every 60 minutes, if not 45.
Yeah, right.
And so there's no sleep. That is the roughest part. That and the dehydration side of it. So
right, because you can't keep anything and nothing.
No.
It's all.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It is, as I was telling Lou, who's running our video this morning, it's like the bar at 2:00 in the morning. It's like, whoop, everybody out. That's all it is. So that's what it was. It didn't matter. Nothing stays. So yeah, yesterday was the first time I ate in a couple of days, which was good. Probably better for my waistline, but yeah, not bad. So nice to see you. How are you?
Welcome. We're glad to have you back. It's better than having Jeff's monologues for
I don't know about that,
4 hours, but
still appreciate it.
Good morning, Denver. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes a little crazy. It's going to be another beautiful day in America's greatest city. We're gearing up for a whole morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So get that coffee brewing, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We're going to give you some updates on the Trump trials. The Gag Order ruling came down yesterday. We'll give you the updates on that, as well as the protests taking place on college campuses. 7:00 hour, Representative Ron Weinberg is going to join us. A former illegal alien. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Went down there and at the well, which is where congressmen or state reps speak.
Yeah.
And said he was formerly an illegal alien. Wow. And when he said that,
he was deported.
You would think gaveled down by the Democrats.
Oh,
because he used a word.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true.
Alien.
How'd they react?
Alien was the word. So he's going to give us an update on how things are going down at the state capitol. Thank God they're 8 days left or whatever, working down there. We'll cover the White House considering welcoming Palestinian refugees to America. Northwestern giving full ride scholarships to Palestinians. And then fascinating, the 8:00 hour, they did exit interviews. The New York Times did exit interviews with a number of congressmen that are leaving, and here were their responses on a whole host of different things, from what's broken at Congress, what do we need to do to fix it. Fascinating, I thought, kind of look into the true, genuine operations of Congress. And then 9:00, friend of the show, Joshua Sharf, fellow at the Independence Institute. The ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, I think that's it, is looking at bringing war crime charges to Israelis' leadership. What does that mean? They haven't necessarily issued the warrants yet, but even the Biden administration and those in Congress are acting as if they're about to, so they know something. What could that mean for the battle taking place between Hamas and Israel? So you're going to get all the news, all the commentary you need to start off your Wednesday just right. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning. And good morning, Billy and Jeff. And should be a great day with Billy back. 45 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 60s today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up.
Oh, I'm have to say that.
Our top story: leaders at Denver's Auraria campus met with Hamas supporters for over an hour Tuesday. The protesters say they want the universities to condemn what they're calling genocidal actions in Gaza. They have no idea that Hamas has rejected numerous ceasefire opportunities and are oblivious to the option of surrendering so there's peace for all in Gaza. CU Denver Chancellor Michelle Marks said the protesters are in violation of the campus's no camping policy. The protesters say they aren't being heard the way they want to, but also say progress is slowly happening. At UCLA overnight, more struggles as Hamas supporters continue to cause chaos, and dozens of people could be facing charges after police cleared the Columbia University grounds and their encampment along with Hamilton Hall Tuesday night in New York. Olivia Feldman is a college student. Her great-grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and here's what she deals with now on campus.
It is a very, very visceral feeling in me when somebody tells me to go back to the gas chambers.
The people united will never be defeated.
Wow, that's sick. Former President Trump on Fox News Channel last night. He knows all of this garbage is paid for by American and Jewish hating organizations.
These aren't hand painted signs where people would go to their basement and paint something because they really believed it. These are all signs that are identical. They're made by the same printer. And, when you see that, that means there's somebody at top that's paying or a group that's paying. And they're doing great disservice to the world, but they're doing great disservice to our country. But when you look at New York in a state like this, but look at other cities, it's not a lot different. It's frankly worse in some places than it is right now in New York.
Trump doesn't have to be in the kangaroo court today, so he'll be on the campaign trail in Wisconsin and Michigan. A police officer has been injured in a two-vehicle crash in Thornton. Thornton Police Department says it happened Tuesday night near 128th Avenue and Washington Street, and northbound Washington Street was closed at 124th Avenue after the wreck. The officer suffered non-life-threatening injuries, and the two people in the car were not hurt. Authorities haven't said what led to the crash. Hundreds of thousands of people in Colorado will see higher internet bills this month. That's because funding for the federal Affordable Connectivity Program ends this week. The program has helped low-income households across the state afford internet services since 2021. 250,000 households in Colorado are enrolled in the program, and a bill that would extend is currently stuck in Congress. 41 in Boulder, 42 in Castle Rock, and 45 in Denver.
Nathan McKinnon on the puck. McKinnon back to the point for Taves with a shot, scores!
The Avalanche.
The shot, and Mikko Rantanen got his stick on it.
The Avalanche beat Winnipeg last night 6-3 and headed to the Western Conference semis. They'll take on the Stars or the Golden Knights. Rocks blew a five-run lead and lost in extra innings to the Marlins 7-6 in 10. Back at it in Miami this afternoon. Nuggets and T-Wolves Saturday at Ball Arena in Game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals. News is brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Jeff and Bill continue on Hump Day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy to cloudy. Highs upper 60s to near 70 today with a chance of showers and a few thunderstorms this afternoon. Overnight, we could have some showers. Lows in the lower 40s. Partly cloudy and cooler near 60 Thursday with afternoon showers and thunderstorms near 40 Thursday night. Low to mid 60s with scattered showers and thunderstorms likely for Friday into Friday evening. A break in the weather for the weekend. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS.
All right, some key takeaways from yesterday's Trump trials. Judge Juan Merchan handed down his first punishment to Donald Trump for violating the judge's gag order in the New York hush money trial Tuesday, fining Trump $9,000 for 9 violations. The judge also warned the former president in his written order that continued violations could also lead to imprisonment, a striking reminder of the historic and surreal nature of this trial, CNN reports. The ones that he was asked to delete were mostly kind of geared towards Michael Cohen. He had shared a series of New York Post articles. A serial perjurer will try to prove an old misdemeanor charge against Trump and is an embarrassment for the New York legal system. He'd shared that particular article 4-5 times. That made up a bulk of that. He also had to bring down these posts. He had till 2:15 Eastern time yesterday to pull these down. And with 30 minutes to go, he did. He pulled down these. There's one that said, "Thank you to Michael Avenatti for revealing the truth about the two sleazebags who have, with their lies and misrepresentations, cost our country dearly." And that was referring to a tweet from Michael Avenatti saying that Cohen and Daniels were conspiring against Donald Trump. One post was also the signed document from Stormy Daniels about the fact that nothing had ever taken place between her and Donald Trump. So those were the original 9, but then the prosecution brought up another one. This one seemed a little bit of a reach from the prosecution in my intent. Prosecutors have pointed that Trump continues to comment about witnesses, including that he thought AMI chief David Pecker was nice.
Yeah.
Prosecutors argued that the remark was a message to other witnesses to be nice.
Well,
on the stand.
The thing is, he shouldn't be talking about the witnesses, regardless if it's negative or positive. That's just kind of the issue. And the idea, we'll see what happens. I don't think they'll put him in jail.
The biggest critique in this, I do think that this is a restriction of free speech. I do understand this is how criminal trials work. But I do think Donald Trump has enough surrogates to go out there and make all these statements. His sons could go out there and make all these statements too.
Yeah. Then how would it be a restriction on his free speech? Help me understand that.
Because we're in a unique setting where you have the president, where you have a candidate running for president of the United States, where how many months before the election right now? 6 months. He's brought up on criminal trials and he can't really comment about the witnesses of the criminal trials. This isn't just a traditional criminal proceeding.
Yeah, it is.
This is a candidate for president of the United States.
But it is a traditional criminal proceeding, and it should be bound, you would assume, based on many of the same norms, unless you believe that once you're declared for a candidacy for an office, that then you get to take those norms off.
I think this whole thing's historic. Whole thing is historic,
absolutely,
which puts it in a totally different category.
Well, yeah, but doesn't mean
so you can't just put it. Well, it's a traditional criminal procedure.
It can be a traditional criminal procedure and historic at the same time, because the traditional can be the guardrails and the mechanisms and the machinations that go on as far as how a trial goes forward.
Yeah.
And then it can also be historic based on the fact that it's never happened before. I don't see how it is a restriction on his free speech as a candidate to not be able to talk about the witnesses in the case, because we know that what he wants to do is denigrate the witnesses in the case, and you're not allowed to do that in a criminal trial.
But don't the witnesses have the ability to denigrate him?
Well, if they want to in public, yes, sure, but it's also based on the trial. Here's the idea: that is how the system is set up.
Yeah, but do you think that's fair?
Here's the thing: I'm not going to judge it based on this individual case. Yes, I do think it's fair, because I believe that when you're in a criminal trial, the chances of you saying denigrating things about the witnesses in order to intimidate them or harm them before the jury, yes, I do believe that is serious. Serious enough that it should be prevented. Yes, absolutely. Regardless of whether or not it is myself or it is a candidate for president. Don't care.
But this is a business records trial. This isn't like the mob intimidating witnesses and threatening to kill them and that type of thing. Okay, this is a business records trial.
In what cases should you be allowed to denigrate the witnesses? In what cases should that be acceptable in criminal trials?
I don't know if denigrate is the right word.
Yeah, it is, because that's what he does. It's absolutely appropriate based on how he behaves.
Nice is denigrating?
Based on how he behaves. He denigrates witnesses, judges, DAs, everybody involved. That is his MO. You cannot argue with that. He has said some nice things, but that one nice thing does not excuse the other things
but
that he said.
They want to prosecute him on saying nice.
So what? Don't care about that one. Then he just shouldn't be saying anything. But the reason he got in the twist that he is right now, and the reason he's being held in contempt, is because the denigrating things, not the nice things. Nobody walked in there and goes, oh, wow, look at all these wonderful things he's been saying about the judge and the DA and the witnesses. Nobody said that. He has one nice thing. and that's fine. One nice thing. So I'm just curious, in what trials should you be allowed to denigrate the witnesses, the DA, and the judges?
Because I think this is unique, because I think this is election interference from the Democrats, because I think that this is an effort to hamper and stop the Republican nominee for president. I think he should have every right to go out there and respond just as much as the witnesses have towards him, because you have a much bigger context here. You have you actually have the campaign for the presidency of the United States of America taking place.
So basically,
and they have put him into this show trial. It's election interference, and they've now muzzled him.
But you have drawn some conclusions that are not necessarily supported by facts and evidence.
Yeah, they are.
And that's fair. No, that this is a show trial done in order to harm his candidacy and running for president. That is not facts that are in evidence. It's your opinion, and you can hold that opinion, and that's fair, and that's fine. The issue that I have, though, is that your qualifications are, from now on, if someone's in trouble criminally and they announce for a large enough office, then we get to give them special rules as far as how they get to behave.
It's something to consider
of
what's going on here, especially if there's an election going on.
No, not at all. Because
and the DA ran for office saying, I'm going to prosecute this guy.
Again, what I come back to is that your fundamental premise is that if you're involved in any criminal action, as long as you declare for a campaign in office, then you get a whole bunch of special rules.
That's a reach, Bill.
No, it isn't. Not in the least. No, it isn't.
Absolutely. This is a coordinated effort to take down the Republican nominee for president, and now they've found ways to continue to muzzle him. And they haven't even put this. We've had the same conversation over and over.
I know, but you keep making the conclusion. I don't understand why. And I keep asking you about the conclusion.
I think there's enough evidence to show this.
And I've asked you to show that evidence, and you haven't.
What do you mean?
I've asked you over and over again.
Statements from Alvin Bragg himself talking about how he's going to, if he's elected, he's going to go after Donald Trump.
Coordination.
Where's
the coordination?
With the who's the guy that did the opening statements?
Who
from DOJ?
For what? Where? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
In this case, the guy who did the opening statements starts with a C.
Don't know.
I could not pronounce his name, but he's a total hack. He's a total hack.
Okay, but again,
for
you haven't
the
showed
Biden
me.
administration, I think
You haven't shown me. You haven't shown me any coordination. No.
I showed it to you.
No,
you just
haven't.
Not believing it.
No, you haven't shown me any coordination.
Of course.
You haven't shown me them working together. You haven't shown me any coordination of them working together.
I just showed you the guy who did the opening statements in this trial has served in multiple capacities with lots of Democrats, including the Biden administration. You have a DA who said he's going to go after.
Stop there. Let's stop there. Okay, fine. Go ahead.
You have a DA who said he's going to go after Donald Trump. I think this thing is totally coordinated.
Okay, so the coordination is you have a guy that has worked in the Biden administration, who, if I understand, is the same guy who also worked with Alvin Bragg, also in the Manhattan's DA's office beforehand. Would not be unusual for him to return to office. You haven't shown me any plot or coordination between the Biden administration and Alvin Bragg. I don't negate the fact that Alvin Bragg ran on the fact that he was going to prosecute Donald Trump. Yeah, that is not coordination. That's him doing it.
That's politics, though. He's using law to advance political ends.
No, not necessarily.
Oh, that's totally what he's doing, man.
Because if you come out here and Donald Trump is saying that he wants to deport all of the illegal immigrants, and that, again, he's making a campaign promise about crimes and things he's going to prosecute and things he's going to do. Same thing that Alvin Bragg did. That's it. It's the same thing.
No, that's
everybody
not the same
does it.
thing.
Yes, it is. It's the exact same thing. It is the exact same thing.
So the trial, again, off today, but will continue. I don't think that they are getting where they want to get on this. The prosecution. I haven't seen, and again, we're relying entirely on news reports here because this thing isn't broadcast on television. You don't even have audio of what's going on in there, which I think is a big problem. But you don't see the touchdown celebrations taking place as the prosecution is moving their case along.
Yeah.
Do you see that in the media?
No, but again, I don't expect the prosecution to come out and do touchdown celebrations during the prosecution. That to me would be unethical. To come out and go, "Wow, did we really hammer them today?" Really? That to me would be unethical.
Well, I know it'd be unethical, but you don't think they'd do it if they did?
I don't know. But again, you have this assumption that they are unethical. And I'm just waiting to see what happens. That's it. I'm not saying they are or they aren't. I'm just saying doing that would probably be unethical. So I don't see them doing that. So I don't draw the conclusion that they're unethical, as you have.
So in Trump's case, he's now having family starting to come visit him, other political figures, guys that created Club for Growth. What do you think that message sends?
I think that they've gotten to the narrative of how come Donald Trump is showing up alone in court every day. That was a question early on, whereas family supporting, whereas everything else, because normally inside of a criminal trial, you will have families sitting inside the courtroom and people will show up with them. And there was a question. Now, did I think it was a fair question? No, not in the least. Not in the least. But that was a question that was out there. And so I think he's answering the question. That's all it is. I just think it's window dressing so that he has to show that he has support there. Just like if you had shown up to a criminal trial, oh, where's the family? Regardless of what the family had, other obligations, doesn't matter the fact that the kids have, full-time jobs, everything else. They wanted to see them in court. So that's what they're getting. That's it.
Did you see he's getting the time off to go to Barron's graduation?
Of course he was.
Yeah.
That's what that if we can
that wasn't decided till yesterday.
Yeah, but if we return to the conversation we had about it and everybody else losing their mind about it, I said he probably would be let. He would be let to go. Yes, that's what I said. Even though at the time I incorrectly stated that he claimed that the judge had decided it already. And I incorrectly claimed that he did, but he did lean towards the idea, the conclusion that the judge wasn't going to let him go. And I said I'd be highly, highly skeptical that he wouldn't let him go. So of course he was. Yes. So I'm glad we had that big kerfuffle about it. That was great.
Text messages coming in on this one. The rules of the court apply to both sides. Okay. I'm not sure what they're getting at there. If there's a gag order, it should cover all concerned, including court officials, witnesses, all attorneys, and defendants. What do you think about that? 5631.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we can go through that. It depends on what I would have to see is that the witnesses, etc., would be crossing the same boundaries that you would have based on the defendant. And if we feel they are, then sure, I can put it under there. And I would assume that inside of a court that a gag order could cover potential witnesses going out there and talking about, hey, this MFer is doing this and you won't believe what this person did. I would assume that then you could also the defense could ask for a gag order on a potential witness if that was an issue. I would assume that's the process. I don't know the process, but I would assume that if you were a criminal defendant and there was a potential witness and the witness was going out there and doing a whole bunch of interviews and talking about you negatively and things that you didn't want, that you could probably ask them to stop. I don't know the process, so I'm not certain. Never been involved in it, but I would assume that would be a remedy. If it's not, sure, we can talk about it because it probably should be then. Absolutely. So but I don't think a gag order. I don't think if you put a gag order on the defendant, it covers everybody. That seems illogical because it seems like the one person is misbehaving. Why would you stop everybody else from talking who seems to be following the rules because the one person? That just seems illogical. So I just don't know the rules.
And where I go on this is because there's so much more at stake here than there is just an existing criminal trial. You have the campaign for presidency, and you have the Republican nominee. I mean, we're not even primary anymore. Yeah. This is the dude.
Again, that was the GOP's choice, though. So you can't sit here and say, hey, the Republican Party made this choice, and now you need to excuse him from X, Y, and Z. Y'all made the choice. That's you. So don't get mad that you chose this dude who we knew was going to have these issues headed towards the election. You can't then complain about the nominee you chose.
I don't see that because then you're putting it back on the Republican primary voters.
Yes, the Republican voters. You chose someone that was going to be involved in these court cases. Don't complain about them being involved in the court cases.
In a situation where you have a presidential campaign taking place, it's the Republican primary voters' fault that their candidate can't respond publicly while everybody else is denigrating him?
No, it is the Republican primary voters' fault for choosing Trump. You guys had several choices.
Put it back on them.
No. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So I'm sorry. I don't understand.
How they rigged this system so bad, and it's the Republican primary.
Who they rigged the system? Who rigged the system?
Democrats are. It's not Republican.
Hang on a sec.
Give me a Republican DA prosecuting Donald Trump now.
Did the Democrats vote for Donald Trump and put him in as the nominee for president for the GOP?
No, but they're the ones prosecuting Donald Trump.
Hang on.
They're using
going during the primary. Was it known that Donald Trump was going to have these legal entanglements? Were the indictments already released? Okay. Sure. So that information was all known. Yeah. And Republican voters still made the choice for Donald Trump.
Yes.
Okay. That's on you.
No, it
Yes,
is
it is.
on the Democrats who are using lawfare. Bill,
No.
don't put this on Republican
no, not in the
primary
least.
voters.
No, you knew. No, here's the thing is, you knew the indictments
I love
were
how
coming.
we are 25 minutes into having
Why?
you back, and we are already in it.
The thing is, I don't understand this because it is yes, we knew, and whether or not you agree that it is coordinated or not, and I don't see any coordination, but we knew prior to voting in the primaries that Donald Trump was going to have these legal entanglements. And the GOP, using their God-given right and independence and judgment, chose Donald Trump as the nominee. You then don't get to complain about all of the legal entanglements you were well aware of when you voted for him. You don't get to complain about it.
Here's an interesting text message. I didn't know about this. Cohen has a podcast that he broadcasts each night after the trial, and he's making money on it. He can go out every night and spew his garbage about Donald Trump, make money on it, but he's not gagged. Double standard, 0148.
I don't know the rules involved. Don't know if the defense has asked for a gag order. Don't know if that fits. Okay. But again, standard procedure in a criminal trial for this type of thing to happen.
It's not this whole thing
Yes,
isn't
it is.
standard procedure.
Yes, it is.
This whole thing
Totally
isn't
is.
standard procedure. All right. When we come back, I want to get into updates happening on the college protests. You'll never guess what they're asking for. Yeah, you probably can. All right. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. Clashes have broken out at the UCLA campus between pro-Palestinian protesters and counter-protesters. It comes hours after Columbia University in New York was cleared of pro-Palestinian demonstrations when police arrested dozens of students overnight. Helmeted officers moved in around 9 p.m. local time, breaking up the encampments that had been established by activists calling for the university to divest from Israeli government assets. The lawyer who allegedly brokered the hush money payment between Donald Trump and an adult film star has testified that he believed the former president was behind the deal. The court also fined Trump for multiple violations of its gag order. Ira Spitzer reports.
The jury at the court here in New York heard from a lawyer named Keith Davidson, who at one time represented adult film actress Stormy Daniels and the Playboy model Karen McDougal, another woman who said she had an affair with Trump. And while Davidson said he worked directly with Trump's former fixer Michael Cohen, it was his understanding that Trump was the driving force behind the alleged $130,000 payment to Daniels. The former president has denied all wrongdoing and has called the trial, which continues on Thursday, a sham.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. They're starting to crack down on the protests taking place at the colleges across the country. Campus police deploy a chemical irritant at the University of Arizona. They also had to break up a bunch of violence that broke out on the UCLA's campus. Arrested 100 at 2 New York campuses. New York Police Department made at least 100 arrests overnight, with most at Columbia University. Arrests were also made at the City College of New York. This was a lady at one of the protesters demanding, this was at Columbia, where they'd taken over the main building there at Columbia, asking for food and water to be delivered to him.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries, we want to take over this building. Now, would you please bring us food and water?
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food.
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it violently.
They haven't stopped it yet.
I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
So Bill said you think she's either an instructor or a PhD student at Columbia.
I think I heard that she, and again, I didn't pay attention to all the details, but I think I heard that she's either somewhat of a instructor that is also a PhD candidate, I think, but I could be completely wrong about it. The other part is, if I remember correctly, her area of study is outside of international relations, Israel, that purview. I want to say it's something else like art history or something weird like that. I don't know what it is. Oh, wait, hang on. God, it is. There is something about that. It's okay. Wait. Oh, hold on. Stupid brain. Hang on. Sick brain. Oh, what she's studying. Yeah, she is. Okay. She is somewhat of a part-time instructor or somewhat of an adjunct professor type of a thing. She is a PhD candidate. And I believe that her area of study, not surprisingly, is poetry through a Marxist lens or filter. So again, not surprisingly, but I think, I'm still recovering from the illness. I'm not certain that's right, that what the back of my brain is telling me, but I think it is. I think that's her.
Letting them study Marxism. They are finding solidarity with the Palestinians.
Yeah.
They have no food and water.
Yeah, not surprisingly. That was just dumb, honestly. It's the thing for me is that, like, I appreciate the reporter, and I very rarely do I hear, in my opinion, good journalism. And that was good journalism. That was the accurate question that needed to be asked. After she said, we want food and water, the question should be, wait, you put yourselves in this situation. You were not barricaded in there by somebody else.
Yep.
You were not taken hostage. Nothing like that happened. You placed yourselves in this situation. And if you want food or water, you can walk out the front door and go get it. Also, I seem to remember that there are drinking fountains inside that building. I also saw some video of you taking drink machines and pushing them up against doors. So I think you have access to liquid refreshment if needed.
If
also,
you'd like to spend the money for it.
Well, again, also, if I would assume that you would have brought pocket change to your revolution, just in case something happens. The other part is, and anybody that's been in a natural disaster knows that if worse comes to worse, you need drinking water. The water that fills the top of the tank before you flush it is clean. You can drink that top water out of the top of the tank. It's not necessarily the cleanest water. It's going to be a little dirty. But if you're worried about surviving on water, you got access to water. Yeah. What she was doing was paper thin BS and political. It was crap.
Our friend from Nebraska, if that woman and the protesters want hot food and 3 meals a day and a cot, they can get it in jail. Look, this was a the president of Columbia University had set a deadline, 2:15 p.m., saying that if they didn't disperse by 2:15 p.m. earlier that day, there were going to be consequences. They, at right around 2:00, a series of professors came out and kind of created a human wall to protect the students from doing it. At that point, I said that the president of the university should expel the students that haven't left and fire the teachers that are directly disobeying an order of the president of the university. She did not do that. Then later that evening, you had the takeover of campus buildings. Should the president have acted more decisively when the 2:15 or 2:00 timeline came and went, and she didn't respond aggressively?
Well, the only problem with the super aggressive response is you have to fill those classroom positions later on in the fallout. So you strategically, you have to be careful, because what you're going to end up with in theory is if you have a whole bunch of professors, let's say, a group of them that you fire, you then have staffing issues, and you've got to get the rest of the kids that are fine, the rest of the kids that are not being a problem, the kids that are doing what they should do on campus, they are paying for that education, and they still need teachers in the classrooms. We can argue whether or not it should be these teachers, but you've been involved in large groups. You have to fill that staffing
I've actually
role.
been involved with staffing at a university, and typically when you have an opening, there's plenty of people that apply for them.
I know, but how quickly can you replace them? And how quickly can you get them in? Not necessarily.
Yeah, the next day.
No,
you can.
It's not like hiring at McDonald's.
The curriculum is generally approved prior to by vice presidents, so they know what's being taught. This is why you have substitutes that can come in, and if a teacher gets sick, that students don't miss class. They just have somebody fill in for them. So would it be a pressure upon the university? Sure, it would be. Would you get the right professors in? No. But you get temporary ones in to at least finish out the semester, which is what, a week or two?
Yeah. And I'm certain that the students that are paying $60,000+ a semester, a year, they're going to be super happy about not having qualified teachers or instructors for the end of their semester.
They'd be qualified, but it's a week or two.
Not necessarily.
And these guys are they're out of there, and you don't have the taking over of your campus buildings taking place, which I think is a huge distraction. I mean, did you see the videos of kind of how aggressive they got, breaking all the windows and things?
But
like that?
What I also didn't see is I didn't see professors in there, and that would be the thing when you talk about the professors. The thing for me is,
they created this human wall, this shield that prevented the campus police from breaking up the encampment that took place.
Yeah,
and so allowed this to continue to fester.
Well, but that's different than them. That's different than them breaking into the building. So that's the thing. So
but I mean, the point being, because the president didn't act decisively at the 2:00 deadline that day, it created further problems that
I can see
that I think the president should have. And if she's only 2 weeks out from the end of school, are they the most qualified, best? No, but you're also 2 weeks. At that point, you're basically administering tests. Okay. You're not doing these great, brilliant lectures anyways. So, I think she should have acted more decisively. Do you think this wraps up? I mean, yesterday you had police at Arizona, you had police at UCLA, you had police at NYU. Do you think this thing's reached its peak?
No, I don't think so.
What about when college is done? Do you think it'll transition into streets and stuff?
I doubt it, because I think that is more difficult based on logistics, because here you have a captive group of people that are more amenable to your feelings and your emotions, where I don't think you find that over a summer.
Yeah. All right, let's go to, is it Frank in line 1? I think it's Frank. I'm going to go with that. Frank, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Frank.
Yeah, this is Frank Prime. So welcome back, Billy. I've been in your situation, and the most amazing thing to me is how much stuff is inside the human body. I mean, it's just, how can this keep going on? I mean, pretty soon there's not going to be anything left of you,
Yeah.
Anyway, but you're welcome back. Anyway, the Billy left a couple things out that I'd like to point out on this gag order. First of all, our legal system is purposefully slanted toward the defendant.
Yeah, and that they're innocent.
We do that on purpose, and that's one of the things that makes us different. The gag orders are typically to protect the defendant, not the other side. Anyway, so that's one thing. Another thing is, so now we have a sitting president of the United States of America bad-mouthing a defendant. And you're saying that should be okay, but the guy running against him should not be able to do that. Now, clearly we're on new ground here, but the whole thing is absurd. And especially when you look at it, part of the defendant's case is that this is in fact not a felony, and he's been accused and convicted in the media by our sitting president as being a felon. Everybody on the other side, the 39% who would still vote for Biden no matter what he did,
yep,
they're all saying he's a convicted felon, and the fact is he's not. And they're able to go out and say that, and it's just, the whole thing is absurd, Billy. And I don't know. I listen to this and I try to be fair. And on this one, you're just flat wrong.
So you think he should be able to denigrate the witnesses and attack the judge in the case?
I don't think anybody should be able to.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I can agree with you on that one.
So we have in life, I don't think we should be allowed to do that either. I don't want a law for it, but we shouldn't do that in life.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: is that the entire Democratic Party has tried this case, and he's guilty of a felony. And one of the key parts of the case is that the defense is, and why this will be thrown out if he is convicted. I still have hope that there will be one holdout in the jury. Is that it's not a felony. He did not commit a felony. He did not commit a crime. And, but this is absurd that the judge would do this.
Well,
and
Frank, hang on a second. Frank, hang on a second. That we can admit he did commit a crime. Whether or not statute of limitations or it's a felony, we can argue. But this is a fundamentally. Hang on a sec. But hang on a sec, though. But hang on a sec. Hang on. Fundamentally, he did, and we can get into court and we can see if it's adjudicated, etc. And again, Frank, I'll remind you, I'm not part of the Democrat Party. The other part is that what I feel, I appreciate, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words you said earlier. The other thing, though, is that I would submit, while you say, and you broad brush the Democrats and say the Democrats all assume that he's guilty of a felony, what I'm going to say then and counter is that all Republicans view this as lawfare and completely unjustified. So both sides.
You can't say that because there's so many never Trumpers out there that are on board with the Democrats.
Okay, then MAGA and Trump supporters all believe that this is just totally and completely made up and a coordinated effort. Is that fair?
Well, which part? No, it's not fair because which
yes,
part
it is, Frank. Yes, it is. Come on, Frank. Come on, Frank. Please, Frank. I'm losing your cell phone signal. I'm trying to have the conversation with you. I'm trying to have us come to some sort of a conversational understanding. I conceded that the vast majority of Democrats have convicted him previous to the criminal trial. Yet when I said that the vast majority of the MAGA supporters and Trump supporters think this is lawfare, you wouldn't even give me that. Come on. What supporter, what Trump supporter, what MAGA supporter out there says, no, obviously he needs to be brought into trial and everything else? Jeff earlier was just talking about the idea that this was complete lawfare and that obviously this is coordinated. Yeah, so, I mean, we got to have a little bit of give and take here, Frank. I appreciate the kind words, though.
Let's go to Jay and Sterling. Jay, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, you guys.
Morning.
I got it. After that conversation, it's almost like they got a double standard. Like the old saying goes, what's good for the goose, good for the gander. So if they're going to cut a gag order on him, then they might want to put a gag order on themselves.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see the idea of coming out and not letting Cohen do the podcast in the evening. Absolutely. I can see the idea that telling the witnesses not to go out and talk about it. Sure, absolutely.
Here's the other thing, though. And on Trump, though, I'll go, you've got 1,000 surrogates with huge voices that could go out there and defend you just as well. So,
absolutely.
Don Jr. could have his own podcast just like Cohen does.
Yeah, but he doesn't. I
Well, where else does a guy get out? I can't imagine not to have the right to speak. I mean, that's
But Jay
because
does.
it's like they don't want him to speak of something. Open the court
Jay,
system. I mean,
Jay,
they
he
don't
can.
do that.
Wait, Jay, hang on a sec. He does have the right to speak. Donald Trump has been holding press conferences outside of that courtroom on a daily basis. He does have the right to speak. This is completely and totally incorrect. He can't denigrate the witnesses or the judge in the case. He can talk about whatever else he wants to running for president. He can talk about Israel. He can talk about Ukraine. He can talk about his policies. He can talk about China. He can talk about Mexico. He can talk about immigration. He can talk about inflation. He can talk about crime. He can talk anything, but he can't deal directly. But he can't deal directly with this criminal case.
So if somebody gets a speeding ticket and you walk out and you say something in public about a speeding ticket that if you would have gotten one, then you can't. I mean,
only if you're under a gag order. Because of the previous things he has said, the judge has placed him under a gag order. If he had not said some of the previous things denigrating the DA, the witnesses, especially the judge, that's the one that crosses the line. When he comes in and denigrates the judge involved in the case, that is unethical. So that's the reason.
Jay, appreciate the call. Jay from Sterling. His line will be open 303-696-1971. Let's go to Marcus in Aurora. Marcus, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Marcus.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, I was out getting something to eat the other day, and there was two professors sitting there from one of our local campuses. And I found it interesting. They were talking that, these kids don't know how to protest like we did back in the old days. I'm like,
yeah, I would agree.
Here they wait for the check to come from George Soros, and then they get their tents and demand food to be delivered to them.
I just thought that was hilarious. It was like,
so
I think they instituted on college grounds some of these professors, but I just found that funny. That I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Marcus, appreciate the call. Marcus's line will be open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, he's back, so we got to do You Choose the News.
Yes, despite everybody's cards, letters, and suggestions, we're going to do the silly stuff yet again. It is time for everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. I've scoured the interwebs. Well, I've had days and days to do this. So we have lots of stories about the dumb things us humans have done, giving them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game with Jeff Hunt and Blake Olson from our newsroom. All righty, gentlemen, here is the choices you have this morning. Headline number 1. Not Disney. Headline number 2, going old school. Headline number 3, Gap Band approved. And headline number 4, kind of like a fairy tale. Alrighty, Mr. Hunt, your
not
choice.
Disney.
Yes, this is definitely not Disney. Recently at Grand Canyon National Park, a woman got very, very close to some of the wildlife. An elk had wandered into town near a storefront, and the woman almost got trampled to death. Like moose, elk tend to mistake domestic dogs and animals as threats. And so during the time in which this elk was eating some garbage right near a store, she decided to take the opportunity to go up and try to touch it. Luckily, it ran away rather than it stomping the pure life out of her. I've seen that happen before. Again, not a Disney petting zoo, people. Don't go up and touch the wild animals.
There's a great Instagram account called the Taurons, like the morons of Yellowstone. The
It's absolutely ridiculous. And there's a reason they're called wild animals, you idiots.
Yes.
So, yeah. All righty, Jeff, second choice this morning. Going old school, Gap Band approved, or kind of like a fairy tale?
Let's go old school.
Going old school at this one, here we are talking to Ukraine and the Main Directorate of Intelligence. They recently released a video. They went old school on some Russian air power. This wasn't anything to do with the skies. What they did is they snuck up on an aviation field just outside of Moscow and lobbed Molotov cocktails into the cockpits of the helicopters, making them burn. So very, very clever, very old school, and very appropriately Russian to do the Molotov cocktails to make their air power burn. I think that's kind of nice. So they shared some video of it again. The aircraft can be repaired, but it's not flying anytime in the next several months. So kind of cool, but it was a really interesting video that I saw online. Yeah. Kind of cool. And especially Molotov cocktails throwing with the Russian stuff. There's an irony there that I appreciate. All righty.
That's good.
Blake Olson in our newsroom. Gap Band approved, or kind of like a fairy tale?
Yes. One of my favorite groups of all time, Gap Band.
Gap Band approved. I really appreciate that one. And this is a shout out to possibly one of Blake's favorite songs, You Dropped a Bomb on Me.
That's the 15th best.
Yep, that is the 15th best.
I'm sorry.
No. Now, the local not local, but it's a German Bundesliga club, recently had to suspend operations in and around the stadium. They're doing stadium renovations recently, and they found, a live World War II bomb. It was 1,100-pound American bomb that had not detonated, and it was buried just meters outside of the edge of the stadium. So they had to call in the bomb crew. They evacuated over 3,500 individuals in the neighborhood. Took them a couple of hours in order to defuse it. And of course, though this happened on a Friday, you knew that Mainz, that's the Bundesliga club, they were playing on Sunday because that's how the Germans do. So, yeah. So find the bomb on Friday. You're hosting the game on a Sunday. That's how it goes. So that's it. That's all we get for You Choose the News. And this is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form by Roll 'em Out Shelves. They are a reputable company, and you can call them and get a free home estimate today. They can organize your kitchen, bath. See all their work at rollemoutshelves.com. Blake, thank you so much for playing along. Back to you, sir.
In the 7 o'clock hour, coming up in just a few minutes, Representative Ron Weinberg is going to join us, who said from the floor of the House, I, at one point in my life, was an illegal alien.
Can we deport him now?
He was gaveled down.
Is that what we're going to do?
No. We'll get into it more. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
In the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe.
Good morning.
Bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. It's another beautiful day in America's greatest city, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up in just a minute is going to be Representative Ron Weinberg. He has an interesting perspective. He's had a very interesting year down there. Not only is he the only Republican Jew down there and had to deal with all the crazy leftism that came from Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez, who we affectionately call Timmy Epps, because it's like the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie coming together, right? You got to have some type of a name for that. But he had to deal with all their crazy anti-Semitism, but he's also an immigrant to this country. And so when House Democrats gave Republicans a list of words that should and should not be used in the debate, and anytime a House Republican used any of these words like alien, illegal, invader, fresh off the boat, anchor babies, any of those types of things, they were gaveled down. Bang, 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 bang. You cannot say this. And their microphone was shut off in the midst of debate on illegal immigration policy. So he got up there and made some remarks, and he was gaveled down. One of those being, I, at one point in my life, was an illegal alien. I'm interested in hearing his response to that. So we'll get to him in just a second. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Can't wait to hear that. 46 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 60s today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
If you refuse to disperse, you will be placed under arrest and charged with disorderly conduct.
New York police clearing out Hamilton Hall last night at Columbia. For now, the inmates are not running the asylum, but it's early. It's only 7 in the morning, 9 East Coast time. Dozens could be facing charges after the demonstrations calm a little. However, at UCLA overnight, Hamas supporters losing their minds again against Jewish students. And at UT Austin, these Jewish students break it all down extremely well.
The rest of their students are allowed to be in class. That makes no sense. It's against America. This is against Western values. This is not just a Jewish problem. This is an American problem.
Are y'all all UT students?
Yeah, I was just taking a final, and this is just intimidation. I'm trying to scare Jews off campus. I'm trying to do my final. In the background, I hear they're chanting for the death of Israel, the death of Jews. It's completely unacceptable. If they want peace, they don't stand for anything like it. Israel is a democratic state. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. This is, at the end of the day, they don't want Jews on campus. They're trying to scare us off. They don't want us here.
Are you going to be scared off?
No, absolutely not. We will not follow our history. We will not be led like lambs to the slaughter.
Amen. Leaders at Auraria campus met with Hamas supporters for over an hour Tuesday. The protesters say they want the universities to condemn what they're calling genocidal actions in Gaza. They have no idea that Hamas has rejected numerous ceasefire opportunities and always able to surrender so there's peace for all in Gaza. CU Denver Chancellor Michelle Marks said the protesters are in violation of the campus's no camping policy. The protesters say they aren't being heard the way they want to, but also say progress is slowly happening. Former President Trump does not have to be in night court today. So he'll be on the campaign trail in Wisconsin and Michigan. Did that for you, Jeff. The Colorado Department of Agriculture awarding $20,000 to the Mill Park Stock Growers Association for non-lethal wolf deterrent methods. The goal is to stop wolves from attacking livestock, and the deterrent methods include nighttime patrols and herd protection and hiring range riders. The group's leader says that they're used to dealing with natural predators, but dealing with wolves is new. Another wolf attack was recently confirmed in Grand County. 42 in Superior, 43 in Parker, and 46 in Denver.
Nathan McKinnon on the punt. McKinnon back to the point for Taves with a shot, scores! Taves with a shot, and Nico Rantanen got his stick on it.
The Avs beat Winnipeg last night 6-3, headed to the Western Conference semis. They'll take on the Stars or the Golden Knights. Rockies blew a 5-run lead. They lost in extra innings to the Marlins, 7-6 and 10. Back at it in Miami this afternoon. Nuggets, T-Wolves, coming up this Saturday at Ball Arena in Game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals. Jeff and Bill continue. Bill has returned on Hump Day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy to cloudy. Highs upper 60s to near 70 today with a chance of showers and a few thunderstorms this afternoon. Overnight, we could have some showers. Lows in the lower 40s. Partly cloudy and cooler near 60 Thursday with afternoon showers and thunderstorms near 40 Thursday night. Low to mid 60s with scattered showers and thunderstorms likely for Friday into Friday evening. A break in the weather for the weekend. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS.
All right, so about a week ago, the House Democrats handed a piece of paper to the House Republicans in Colorado saying, here are words you can and cannot say when we debate illegal immigration. Some of those words included illegal, alien, hordes, anchor babies, anything like that. So they had a whole list. Invaders, fresh off the boat. They did say you could say things like undocumented immigrant, non-citizen, and new arrivals. And true to good old Republican fashion and commitment to free speech, they went down there and used some of the words. Well, while they used those words constantly, they were gaveled down, bang, 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 from the Speaker of the House saying you cannot say these things. They would turn off their mic. They would call them into recess. So if you use the phrase, for instance, illegal alien, your microphone was shut off. Well, at one point, Republican Representative Ron Weinberg went to the well, he came to the United States from South Africa as a teenager, and he said this line, which I thought was really interesting. I, at one point in my life, was an illegal alien. Chair Kyle Brown, a Democrat, immediately called the House into recess. So I texted my friend Ron Weinberg. I said, Ron, we got to talk about this. At one point, you were an illegal alien. You got to tell us the story of this. So joining us on the Jeff and Bill Show, Representative Ron Weinberg. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Hey, good morning, guys. Good to be here.
So tell us, first of all, your story, and then we'll get into what happened on the floor of the House. But you were at one point an illegal alien?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when I came over as a teenager, when you turn 18, you're no longer can be on your parents' visa. So it fell off unbeknownst to me, and I had no idea. We obviously corrected it fairly swiftly, but yeah, I was, and I apologize. I don't think we're allowed to use illegal aliens. So I was an undocumented immigrant at one point.
You were a newcomer. I was
a new arrival.
You had been here for a while, and then all of a sudden you became, for a brief period, a newcomer. And then you got that fixed. How hard was it to fix that?
It's just paperwork and time, but it was complicated. You have to prove a lot of different things, and yeah, it's the process. And you know anything about government, they are not swift or fussed about anything, except passing 655 bills in 120 days.
Right. So just to be clear, at this point, you are a legal resident of the United States, Representative Ron Weinberg.
I am a red-blooded American, pulling through. No other loyalty to any other country. I denounced South Africa's citizenship. I am only a red-blooded American patriot.
That's great. So let's now switch over to what's happening on the House. You guys have been debating. I think even maybe yesterday you were continuing to debate some of these illegal immigrant issues around grants and how much money the state's going to spend and that type of stuff. How's it been down there with these House Democrats gaveling down Republicans anytime they use a word they don't like?
Well, it's something I'm pretty used to at this point. I mean, you know, when I go down there as a Jew, I get gaveled down too. So it's just checking off the boxes. Now I'm an immigrant and I'm getting gaveled down.
I mean, is it happening consistently on a daily basis?
It depends the bill, right? So, you know, some days there are just non-controversial bills, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty consistent. The suppression of speech is real, and they don't want a different opinion. They make it very clear that they own the room, and they don't want a differing opinion on it. They want to pass their bills as quick as possible, and they want us to sit down and shut up.
Is there any effort to bring legal recourse to this? I remember a few sessions ago, they were breaking the rules by having computers read bills, for instance, so they could get through it as quickly as possible. And Republicans fought them in court against this. Has there been any movement of Republican leadership to challenge these restrictions, these free speech restrictions legally?
You know, I'm above my pay grade, but I'm sure our caucus is doing something. We have some really smart lawyers that are, you know, part of our caucus, and I haven't heard of anything, but I'm sure something is cooking.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Tomorrow we'll have Holtorf on, and we're going to get updates as we go because you guys are near the end of session. When does session actually end?
Next Wednesday, so 7 days from today, but who's counting?
7 days. And do you think they'll work you through the weekend?
So right now in the pipe, I think I counted yesterday 215 left. So, I mean, I just don't see how we're going to go through that many bills. And I'm pretty sure if they want to try and make an attempt at going through all those bills, we have to.
What is the sense that they're going to prioritize in this last week?
You know what? They've actually been very, very cunning on what they've prioritized. They did the zoning bill for the governor's office, like the 213 last year, except it's a little bit lighter. So they've done the gun bills. What are we at? 11 gun bills now. It seems like a theme. So last year was zoning and abortion expansion, and then this year seems like, okay, we saw that people didn't like Prop HH and 213, so we're going to chip away at the zoning, and then we're going to try and take away the guns, Second Amendment. So I think this is a common theme. They've already done this. So I don't know what's going to be towards the end, but last year, if you remember, 213 sprung on us literally 3 days before session ended.
Yeah.
3 days. So that means it got right over the desk, it got assigned to committee, it went through seconds, it went through thirds, and it did that both in the Senate and the House. So I don't know if they learned their lesson, because it was rough to deal with that. That's why we just walked out, because it was just pointless. Maybe they learned their lesson and they won't do that this time, or maybe they're going to cram it down the last 3 days. So it's always a surprise.
Talking with Representative Ron Weinberg, there's a week left in session. John Caldera's running a ballot initiative that he hopefully can get on the ballot that would reduce the numbers of days down to 90 days, and it has to be consecutive that the state legislature could meet. Would you support something like that?
Absolutely. Geez. I could bring it down to 10 days for pizza. Ridiculous.
What do you give us a sense of how the Mighty 19 are doing? There's only 19 Republicans in the House. The rest are all Democrats. They have a super majority down there. How are you guys holding together? I mean, I think it was last year you guys even walked out towards the end. Expecting any fireworks like that?
I don't, because I you know what, and I shouldn't say, expect the unexpected is really the theme and the common motto at this point. We're holding fast. We're a good band. We're a good united band, and I think today's going to be very interesting. And I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing well. I think we're doing the best we can for our districts. Every single one of us. We're just trying to stall. The job right now for all of us is to try and make sure that another 200 bad bills don't get through. And we're trying to make sure that some of the good bills do get through. So I think we're doing okay. I think we're very, very strong. I think we're banded together pretty well. And, we've got seven days left to do it.
Representative Ron Weinberg, who is gaveled down because he made the statement, I at one point in my life was an illegal alien, and the chair, Kyle Brown, a Democrat, immediately called House into recess. Question for you. Do you think next term you're going to be serving with Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez?
Absolutely not. And I better not. Assuming I get back into re-election. But yeah, it's no way. I can tell they're losing it, and the Democratic Party is kind of sick and tired of it too. They see her and him as completely loose cannons, no predictability, just chaos creators.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you have those two, and then you have this other lawmaker, Javier. He's a Berkeley-educated attorney, and I what is his last name? But I feel like
Representative Mayberry.
Mayberry. Okay, I feel like he's kind of the brains of that leftist operation, because I don't think Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez really know what's going on, but. Am I wrong in reading that he's because he seems to be with them on everything? He's about as progressive as you can get, and he's a Berkeley educated attorney. Whereas, Tim Epps, I think they just found in a back alley, or Tim Hernandez, they found in a back alley. And I don't know Elizabeth Epps' background, but he seems to be the brains of that operation.
I'll be honest. If I had to focus on any of that, I would probably lose my mind. As just being around already gets my mind going. So I don't know, but the common trend is roughly 14 of them. You can tell who's in what camp and what people are doing what. So I don't know much about Mayberry, but. It wouldn't surprise me.
Now, Colorado Representative Ron Weinberg joining Jeff and Bill this morning. Thank you so much for your time, Representative. I want to focus you in on some of the more crazy things that the Democrats have proposed during this legislative session. What I'm curious about are, what are some of those crazy ideas that the Colorado GOP can use to create momentum, leverage, the idea of getting more conservatives inside of our Golden Dome at the state capitol. What are the weaknesses, in your opinion, that the Democrats exposed during this session that hopefully can be taken advantage of this fall?
The complete disgust and disgrace of spitting on the Constitution of the United States and spitting on the Constitution of Colorado. We have an assault weapons ban, guys. We have an excise tax on ammunition, increased background checks, increasing Colorado Bureau of Investigations. It doesn't stop. If you believe in the Constitution, there's absolutely zero reason right now to vote for a Democrat in November. Period. Anybody can bring forth, and I want to hear the argument that anyone can bring forth, and I would tell them right now it's false. If you believe in the Constitution, and you're a patriot to the country, and you believe America is the greatest country in the world, and that is not, there's no living, breathing document that the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Believe it or not, Coloradans like their guns. Whether you're a Democrat, whether you're an unaffiliate, whether you're a Republican, the Second Amendment, it holds true and holds fast to everybody in the state. So I would beat that home. Also, suppression of speech, anti-Semitism. I mean, geez, you just name it. They check all the boxes, and it's the biggest one for me is the attacks on the Constitution, the foundation of this country, and Democrats need to get taught pretty swiftly this November that them in the super majority is not good for your wallet, is not good for your rights, and is not good for America or Colorado.
Representative Ron Weinberg, an American by choice. We're so grateful you're in this country, you're in this state, and you're providing the leadership you are. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
So we'll continue to watch this over the next week. Tomorrow we'll have Representative Richard Holtorf joining us. And I've asked, we'll ask Democrats to come on as well, but we've got 1 week left. And then it's done. And then the pain ends, the suffering ends, the lunacy down at the state capitol ends.
I love Caldera's idea. Let them do as little damage as possible.
Yes.
Because we've seen functionally, they don't do anything until they have to. They are a bunch of high school teenagers that know that their semester project is due and continue to watch the days fall off the calendar. And then all of a sudden, a week before it, go, oh my gosh, I've got to do it. Or, oh, Mom, Dad, can you help me figure out this science project? I'm supposed to, for several months, be watching them. No, that's the problem. They don't do anything until they have to. So narrowing the window that they have the opportunity just makes them get the stuff done quicker. Please do it.
I agree with you. Hey, do you have a high school student considering their college plans? Are they ready to discover more about their gifts and talents? Do you hope to see them become part of the next generation of Christian leaders? Your student is invited to Colorado Christian University's Discovery Preview. This week-long event is completely free. Discovery Preview is designed for students who desire to seek God's purpose and calling in their lives. Students are immersed in the community, culture, and mission of CCU. Workshops focused on calling, career, and Christ-centered leadership help them explore their unique strengths and potential career options. CCU's Christ-centered community even takes the students on a Colorado adventure to experience the beauty of the Rocky Mountains. Eligible students can also qualify for a $1,250 annual scholarship for attending. Don't miss Discovery Preview this summer, June 17th through the 21st. The event is designed for seniors and juniors in high school, and again, it's absolutely free. To learn more, go to ccu.edu/discovery. That's ccu.edu/discovery. When we get back, the Biden administration is thinking of welcoming Palestinians from war-torn Gaza as refugees to America. This would be a shift in American policy. We'll get into that and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. The Philippines has accused China's Coast Guard of elevating tensions in the South China Sea. Manila says a Coast Guard ship and a fisheries vessel were damaged when Chinese Coast Guard vessels fired water cannon at them on Tuesday. Laura Westbrook has more.
The Philippine Coast Guard spokesman told a briefing that their Chinese counterpart had fired water cannon directly against one of their ships for the first time. He said this shows that Beijing wasn't hesitating to use brute force, and this was in violation of international law. Beijing's response has been to say it was the Philippines who was infringing on their territory and they were defending their sovereignty. China claims nearly all of the South China Sea, despite competing claims from other countries.
The Department of Justice has proposed reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug at a federal level. The Drug Enforcement Administration has recommended that marijuana becomes a Schedule III drug, downgraded from Schedule I. Cannabis has been legalized for medical purposes in 38 states and for recreational use in 24. Softening its designation in federal law would be a significant shift in U.S. drug policy, although it would not legalize it. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
This news broke over the evening. White House considers welcoming some Palestinians from war-torn Gaza as refugees. This from CBS News. The proposals to resettle certain Palestinians as refugees would mark a shift in long-standing U.S. government policy and practice. Since its inception in 1980, the U.S. refugee program has not resettled Palestinians in large numbers. Over the past decade, the U.S. has resettled more than 400,000 refugees fleeing violence and war across the globe. Fewer than 600 were Palestinians. In fiscal year 2023, the U.S. welcomed 56 Palestinian refugees, or 0.09% of more than the 60,000 refugees resettled during the last 12 months, State Department statistics show. Does this concern you?
As long as they're vetted, no. I mean, it seems that we would be able to, unlike many of the asylum seekers and illegals that are crossing the border, we should be able to find these people and verify who they are, birth certificates, and do backgrounds on them. I have no problem with allowing Palestinians who are refugees into the country as long as they are vetted, because I believe there is a difference between Palestinians and Hamas. And I do believe the Palestinians have made some poor choices, but I do believe they're different. I believe that all Hamas fighters are largely Palestinian. I do not believe all Palestinians are Hamas.
So over 70% of Palestinians that were polled supported what happened on October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And 75% of Palestinians support Hamas.
Yeah. It's not 100%. And again, background.
So you would be okay if it was that small 25%.
Yeah. And even given certain conversations with individuals that supported what happened on the attacks, given a conversation with them, I think I could be persuaded to let some of them in as well. And the issue being this: if the conversation is, I am mad at the Israeli government because of X, Y, and Z, and I've lost these members of my family, but they don't, and they approved of the attacks because they felt it was, a strike at revenge or a strike at the Israelis, but they don't seem to have the other psychological indicators that they are going to be necessarily terrorist supporters, fine. Because I can understand why someone that has been there for a generation or two has a lot of built up anger and frustration towards the Israelis. I can understand that. And in some places, I believe it's justified. Does it make what happened, what Hamas did, okay? Not in the least. And it's not okay in any way, shape, or form. But again, I think that the Venn diagram is not a circle, that all the Palestinians are not members of Hamas, while the majority of Hamas members...
Well, at least support them. 75% do.
Well, no, 75% support the attack. It's different.
70%, over 70%. So 71% support the attack, 75% support Hamas.
Yeah. So, but again, that's not a Venn diagram.
I don't want them anywhere near this country.
So even if they don't support Hamas, you wouldn't take them in?
They should go to Egypt, Saudi Arabia, or Jordan.
Not the question I asked, though.
Yeah, shouldn't come to our country.
Okay.
They could go to any of those other countries. And if those countries aren't willing to take them, that tells you a lot. That tells you a lot about these folks. This, in my mind, and wait till I share with you guys the next story. Okay. Northwestern cuts deal with encamped organizers, establishes full ride scholarship for Palestinian students, and commits to hiring at least 2 Palestinian faculty for their school.
That is a great deal for them. That is 110%. I would take that deal every day.
For the Palestinians?
Every day and twice. Every day and twice on Sundays.
It's a good deal. It's not good for Americans.
No. For Northwestern University, if I'm in charge there, I would take that deal every day and twice on Sundays.
Why do you want these people on your campus?
Again, you have decided the Venn diagram is a circle.
No,
I do not.
What I have decided is that if Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan don't want them, that should send a very clear message. That's closer to their culture than our culture.
It's not an issue of culture. The question would be, why wouldn't they want it? No. Why wouldn't they want them?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Why don't they want them?
Because this is the reason. Very clearly, the only people that want this conflict to end inside of the Middle East are the Palestinians. They're the only
They want this to end?
They're the only ones that want a Palestinian state and want this conflict to end. The Saudi Arabians don't want to. The Egyptians don't want to. The Iranians don't want to. The Israelis don't want to, because it's functional.
I think the Abraham Accords showed that they were willing to move past this stuff.
No, but the Abraham Accords were window dressing on minor relationships that had existed for decades. That was silly. It was nothing more than a magic trick with a lot of show and pulling a rabbit out of a hat, and the rabbit already existed.
I totally disagree with that assessment.
No, we had functional relationships with both Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
You can look at, who is it? Sam Zakhem, the Bahrainian ambassador from the U.S. They've been very friendly for decades with the U.S. They have been a casual partner of ours for decades. It was all they did is
but it wasn't just between us and U.S. though. No, Israel was actually sending flights to these countries.
No, but the issue being, there was already a working relationship between the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. I give Trump credit for bringing it out into the open and making it official, but everybody in the Arab world knew it existed. All they did is make the relationship public. And I tip my cap to the Trump administration being able to make the relationship public. But those are two very, very minor players in the region. They're not significant.
So tell me why you think Northwestern made a good deal on this.
Because what they did is, in exchange for 2 university professors from Palestine that get 2 2-year contracts. So
Yes.
grand total of 4 years of paid university professors and 5 full ride scholarships to Palestinians. That, in exchange for that, they got the campus protests in theory to stop. Now, if the protests don't stop, then I take away that deal. For me, giving 5 scholarships, you can't tell me that they are not already giving away scholarships to people through legacies and other things that don't necessarily belong there anyway. So I don't care. As long as we're shifting those, as long as we're shifting the 5 scholarships.
Always America last.
And then it's 2.
We got
How
a good
is it
text
America
message.
last?
Because we're giving them to Palestinians, not Americans. What do you mean? How is it America last?
But I don't, again,
give those 5 scholarships to Americans.
You know what? If we would take away the legacy admission, then I'll have that argument with you. But we put our thumb on the scale as far as who we want to let in all the time. So the idea that it is a meritocracy at these universities is incorrect. So I don't care if we're going to set aside these 5 scholarships. And again, 5, not in perpetuity, 5 scholarships and 4 years of teaching. I have 5 scholarships and 4 years in order to stop protests. That's a deal I take rather than Columbia University, where I'm breaking into a building and having to arrest people, rather than what I'm seeing at UCLA, where I have to arrest my students and expel them potentially. This, to me, if I'm the president of university, is a reasonable deal. I'm not happy about it, but I'll take it.
Now, in my perspective, weakness, coddling to terrorists. These are people that are disrupting the general operations. Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
They're disrupting the general.
Protesters are not necessarily terrorists.
These are
Show me
people
where they're doing terrorism.
for the death of Jews on campus and blocking Jews from going to class.
You need to show, again, I don't agree that that necessarily is terrorism. I agree that is protest and unethical and goes too far and can even be criminal. Not terrorism. Not equating them.
Palestinians, 72% support what happened to the Jews on October 7th. 75% support Hamas. The 3 surrounding countries do not want these guys. And then Northwestern says, we'll give you 5 student full ride scholarships to come
They don't
to
want
our
them.
campus.
They
Give
don't
me a
want.
break.
They don't want them because they like the political cudgel that they can use.
No, I think they're bad
absolutely.
news. I think they're real bad news. All right, let's get to Ron. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Man, you're hitting it out of the ballpark, Jeff. And Bill, you're falling short, buddy. You're 100% right. What in the world is going on? No, we should not be welcoming these Palestinians. I think it was Trump that said it, that it's better, people they don't want to even be coming here. Just make our land better, make it better for us. And would we be in this situation if they never poked the bear back in October?
Right. I agree. I agree with you. We wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for the fact that they did that vicious attack. They raped 15-year-old girls. They killed babies, put them in ovens and baked them. And you're telling me 71% of Palestinians supported that. And you have a university and a president in America that are like, come on over. We'll just make sure we vet you. Yeah. Give me a break.
Hey, Ron, got a question for you. Ron, got a question for you. Are all Palestinians members of Hamas?
We don't know. We can guess, but we don't know because you don't know. We're just guessing.
If we're going to take them in as refugees, don't we also have the ability then to vet them?
Well, you have the responsibility to vet them, but don't we have the responsibility to vet any
Ron, I'm just
happening.
asking. We have the ability, though, right?
We vetted that guy that's up in Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, leading chants on Death to America.
Wow.
I don't want these people with this type of culture in America shouting death to America. Get out of here.
So I mean, couldn't you put constraints on the behavior and hold them to a discipline code, just like they do at, I don't know, most private universities, of which Northwestern is a private university. So you can hold them.
It's not happening.
Again, Ron, I'm not arguing whether or not if or not it's happening, etc. right now. I'm saying that you could have a Palestinian who is not a supporter of Hamas and has been held to a behavior code conduct agreement about not chanting death to America, or you lose your scholarship and have to go home. That is a possibility, correct?
That you're in dreamland.
You couldn't do that. Okay.
No, you were in dreamland,
yeah,
because
you're right.
to be putting all these stipulations, if
yeah,
that doesn't
Ron,
hold water.
You know that at private universities, most of them sign a code of conduct already, right? So all the students that show up already that are Americans and exchange students, all that, they already sign a code of conduct. That already exists.
There should be the single most important question as to whether or not somebody is in this country, coming to our country, is whether or not they are going to add to the benefit of this country, or take away from this country.
Yeah.
You either add to it or you take away from it.
Yep. And that person that is a Palestinian and a person is a Palestinian refugee that is not a supporter of Hamas could add to this country. They could be campaigning and be as upset with the Palestinian Authority and Hamas as you and I are. That is a possibility. And they could be a productive member of American society, and they could come in saying this is great that America gave me this opportunity.
If you find them, that's another question.
I'm
not seeing it.
I know.
I'm not seeing it.
I know,
but you see it? I don't see it.
I see it. I see it in the poll where you cite the 75%. I see a 25% window of possibility. Thus, why I keep going back to the vetting.
Go out there and do it. You have other countries right around there that would take them, and they're not taking them.
I told you, because of the foreign relations and the politics involved, they don't want it settled because they want to wipe Israel off the map. Yes, Ron.
Okay, I think you said just not too long ago here that they just want to have their own state.
I talked about the two-state solution. I said that the Palestinians are the only ones that want this conflict to end, in part because they're looking for their own state. Nobody else really wants that.
I don't see. Go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
Well, if that is true, then why on two things? One, why did they poke the bear? Why did they do the attack? You know, that should have never happened, and the level of it is discussed. And two, which you're saying are all of them Hamas? What percentage are the ones that weren't for it? We don't know. Well, and to try to
we do. We have the poll. We had the poll, Ron. That Jeff has been pounding me with. Hang on. We had the poll, Ron, and also Ron. Earlier, you said that they attacked. The Palestinians attacked. They didn't. Hamas attacked. They are two different organizations. Two different.
Hamas aren't Palestinians?
No. Let's a Venn diagram. Hamas is Palestinians, but all Palestinians are not Hamas. That's how a Venn diagram works.
So, Bill, on your point,
so when I said Palestinians attacked,
Ron, hold on a second. When you said that the Palestinians don't want this,
wait, don't want what?
Or don't want this conflict with Israel. I think that's what you said.
No,
right?
I said they're the only one in this conflict that want it to end, and they're the only ones that want a Palestinian state. Are the only ones.
So when I watched that video of the attack on October 7th, the Hamas fighters, which are Palestinians, these young men would call their parents to brag about the number of Jews that they had killed. I don't think they want their own state. I don't think they want peace. I think they want the destruction of Jews. I think they want the murder and the eradication of Jews. Mm-hmm. And you're going to find the one or two that aren't a part of that? I don't know. Ron, I'll give you the final word.
Well, when you wrap this all up, and you look at what's going on, why would we go through all this trouble, bringing these few in, trying to vet them, trying to make sure that they stay quiet on campus? We don't know what they're going to do off campus. what they're going to do on their own free time. Who knows what they're percolating there?
Well, we would have
Why-
FISA, so that would help us do that technically. But
Yeah, because we know all that work.
Well,
So
yeah,
why
get us
would
started
we-
on that. Starting to work in the past. But okay.
Rod,
I'm just saying though, in closing, it's not worth the time. It's not worth our effort when we've got so many other problems with the existing illegal immigrants we're getting right now. Guys, you
Ron,
are awesome.
Appreciate
Thank you.
the call. Thanks so
Ron.
much, Ron. Thank you. Ron's line will be open. Give us a call. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. If you missed it over the night, CBS News reporting, White House considers welcoming some Palestinians from war-torn Gaza as refugees. In addition to that, Northwestern cuts a deal with encampment organizers, establishes full ride scholarship for Palestinian students, as well as some professorships for Palestinian educators. Let us know what you think about that. Hey, folks, it's Jeff Hunt on behalf of the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun. But the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture, and I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture continue improving the efficiency of their irrigation systems and adopting farming practices that help crops use less water to grow. They're planting drought-resistant varieties, and they're leading talks with state policymakers about how to preserve water supplies when we have good years like this last one. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join them. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Having a great conversation here. Over the night, it broke. White House considers welcoming some Palestinians from war-torn Gaza as refugees. Also, Northwestern cuts a deal with encampment organizers, establishes full-ride scholarship for Palestinian students, and provides 2 teaching positions for Palestinian educators as well. Lots of text messages on this, but let's go to Melissa. Line 2, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning. I just wanted to say that I'm glad Bill is back to work. I think we should be more than concerned about at least the same reasons that I've heard discussions on your radio station about how we're concerned about the single Chinese men that are coming over and how the Chinese government might be holding their family hostage or threats of doing something to their family if they don't do what they want here. And the Palestinians is such a small population. I don't know how it would be possible for us to be able to tell who's related or not, anyway.
Yeah.
And they grown up like some
I think
being mad at us.
I think there could be real questions as to whether or not the quality of the vetting is working out. I mean, obviously, not everybody that comes here is chanting death to America, but some are. Some that have immigrated here legally or have become a part of the community in Dearborn, Michigan, are chanting that. And I think there's perfectly fine to ask those questions.
And they're watching our border. I mean, maybe they said, screw it, this is our time right now. And because they knew that something like this could happen. We're bringing people over from Haiti and flying people over from Venezuela. Why not them?
Melissa, do you think there can still be a 2-state solution in Israel?
I don't know. I would hope so, but I've seen how I'm part Jewish. I've seen how how they bring those kids up. I mean, even if mean, you're not supposed to have brain damage, or you're supposed to be very careful with a kid up until at least the age of 5. Otherwise, their brain could be messed up for life.
And they're raising them, and like I said, they're raising them to want to eradicate Jews, not just get rid of Israel, but eradicate Jews off the face of the earth. I don't know. I think the 2-state solution's done. I don't think that can happen anymore. I don't know what that exactly means.
Yeah, what does that mean, though? I think that's important
for the Palestinians. But you cannot live next to people that want you eradicated off the face of the earth. You just can't. You can't allow that to happen.
Yeah, how can you get over something like that? The people that have seen that, I mean, you have no idea.
I got a question then. If we can't have if we can't have the Israelis living against someone and living next to a neighbor that wants them eradicated off the planet, then where are we moving them to? Because that is the directive of Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, everybody else around them. So if the issue is we can't have Israel have a neighbor that wants their destruction, then you have to move Israel. That would be
DNA.
But at least they're not directly attacking.
No. But you said who wants them wiped off the map?
Kind of far away.
Yeah, but you said who wants them off the map? The majority of the Middle East wants Israel wiped off the map. So then you have to move Israel because you can't have them have neighbors. That's what you said.
But
I'm just following up on your premise.
But the activities of Palestine are a little different than Egypt right now and some of the other countries. If they're engaging in outright war with Israel, then I think that's another question.
That's Hamas. Again, the Venn diagram isn't a circle. It's Hamas that did the attacks.
I'm worried about some of those Israeli kids growing up and being so traumatized that they're going to be hateful like some of those Palestinians are against them.
Yeah, and you can't. And if your family was raped or murdered by some of the Hamas terrorists, you would never forgive the Palestinians. There's no way. And I understand that. And you're exactly right, Melissa. Yes, this is why this cycle of violence will not end. And I come back to my premise that the only party in this entire conflict that actually wants a 2-state solution and wants it to end is Palestine. They're the only ones.
Do you think there could be a 2-state solution, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's the only way this ends. If we do not go to a 2-state solution, we are going to have perpetual war for decades because it will not end.
What if Israel just takes over Palestine entirely?
Yeah, and then how do we think that the rest of the Middle East is going to respond?
Do you think Egypt wants war with Israel?
I think what you're going to see is what Iran does.
Just lobs missiles over
proxy
and over
wars.
again?
No, proxy wars. They'll fund terrorism.
With who, though?
I think Israel should give them what they want.
So then,
give them what they
we
want
focus in
and
on that?
not let them come over and work anymore, not help them anymore. Just let them be on their own.
Melissa, we're out of time. I appreciate it. Thanks for the call.
I appreciate the call.
We'll continue this conversation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning, Denver. It's 8 a.m. in the Mile High City, and you've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes crazy. It's another beautiful day in America's greatest city, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning, Jeff and Billy. 51 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 60s today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, a shelter-in-place warning has been lifted in an Aurora neighborhood as the SWAT team is taking care of a warrant relating to a narcotics charge. So the shelter in place in that neighborhood has been lifted. Leaders at Auraria campus met with Hamas supporters for over an hour Tuesday. The protesters say they want the universities to condemn what they are calling genocidal actions in Gaza. They have no clue that Hamas has rejected numerous ceasefire opportunities and always able to surrender. So there's peace for all in Gaza. CU Denver Chancellor Michelle Marks said the protesters are in violation of the campus's no camping policy. New York, the police cleared out Hamilton Hall last night at Columbia. For now, the inmates are not running the asylum, at least for now. It's still early. Dozens could be facing charges. However, at UCLA overnight, Hamas supporters mixing it up with Jewish students, and at USC, there were 100 arrests in Southern California overnight. Former President Trump on Fox News, and he knows all this stuff is not organic, grown by a bunch of peace, love, dove college students.
These aren't hand-painted signs where people would go to their basement and paint something because they really believed it. These are all signs that are identical. They're made by the same printer. And, when you see that, that means there's somebody at top that's paying or a group that's paying. And they're doing great disservice to the world, but they're doing great disservice to our country.
Most of these students don't know history like Olivia Feldman. Her great-grandparents were Holocaust survivors.
It is a very, very visceral feeling in me when somebody tells me to go back to the gas chambers.
The people united will never be defeated.
Colorado Representative Ron Weinberg had to go through the long process of becoming a legal citizen a long time ago when he moved here from South Africa, but now when he describes himself as at one time being an illegal alien, he's gaveled down at the state capitol. Free speech is squashed, and that's not the only thing challenging patriots like Weinberg.
I'm pretty used to it at this point. I mean, when I go down there as a Jew, I get gaveled down too. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty consistent. The suppression of speech is real, and they don't want a different opinion. They make it very clear that they own the room, and they don't want a differing opinion on it. They want to pass their bills as quick as possible, and they want us to sit down and shut up.
He joined Jeff and Bill last hour. There's a push to let new illegal immigrants in the state get their driver's license faster. Right now, those arriving, yes, that should be fun. Arriving in Colorado have to live here for 2 years first, among other requirements. But a bill making its way through the legislature would get rid of all of that, putting them behind the wheel immediately. Get on the road. We need you on the road as quickly as possible. It also expands the list of documents the DMV will accept as proof of identification. And that's what it's about, right?
Blake, I got to ask you about this. And maybe I'll ask Richard Holtorf about the actual, the language of the bill, because my daughter is going through driver's ed right now. And I have to open the stupid little app every time we drive around and record up to 50 hours of her learning to drive. Do illegal immigrants that are getting their driver's licenses have to follow any of these same rules that the rest of us are following?
I doubt it. Well, if they can't read, how are they going to open it? But then again, if they can't see it, it's probably in Spanish also.
I believe the rules are different once you get over the age of 18.
Yeah, I thought, I think they're
true.
going to change that. But I mean, driving in Mexico, I don't care if you're 19 or 20. I don't think it's probably the same rules we have here. Maybe.
Well, how do you read the street signs? That's what I want to know. Aren't those important? I mean, if it's a school zone, I mean,
right.
All that stuff. I mean, it's huge. I'm doing the same thing you are. I'm I'm in the car with my teen, and we're driving all over the place. We're driving to Wyoming so we can get as many hours as possible.
You can go up there and buy your AR-15 too.
I mean, yeah, even right.
Honey,
Yeah,
take Dad to
absolutely.
Wyoming.
Get some fireworks on the way.
Get some fireworks and AR-15s.
Blow up some stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's not safe, and there are a lot. I mean, you can see it now. You drive up and down I-25 or I-70, and you see all these cars without license plates, registration, nothing, tinted windows, and that's what happened in the past 2 days. Couple chases from vehicles that looked suspicious, and ended up with a couple people dead and officers in difficult situations because of suspicious automobiles without license plates and registration, what have you. And now we want to get these IDs to them as quickly as possible. I wonder why.
America last.
Yes. Hey, former President Trump doesn't have to be in night court today, so he'll be on the campaign trail in Wisconsin and Michigan, 47 in Arvada, 49 in Englewood, and 51 in Denver.
Nathan McKinnon on the puck. McKinnon back to the point for Taves with a shot, scores! Taves with a shot, and Nico Rantanen got his stick on it.
Rantanen had a couple of goals. Avs beat Winnipeg last night, 6-3, headed to the Western Conference semifinals. The Nuggets and T-Wolves in the Western Conference semis, they tip it off on Saturday, and the Rocks blew a 5-run lead and lost in extra innings to the Marlins, 7-6 in 10. Back at it this afternoon in South Florida. Governor Polis has declared Friday as Randy Gratishar Day here in Colorado to honor one of the legendary Broncos, the great Randy Gratishar. Randy is an awesome dude. So congratulations to him, and they can celebrate on Friday. All right, Jeff and Bill continue on Wednesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy to cloudy. Highs upper 60s to near 70 today with a chance of showers and a few thunderstorms this afternoon. Overnight, we could have some showers. Lows in the lower 40s. Partly cloudy and cooler near 60 Thursday with afternoon showers and thunderstorms near 40 Thursday night. Low to mid 60s with scattered showers and thunderstorms likely for Friday into Friday evening. A break in the weather for the weekend. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS.
Found this exit interview fascinating. The New York Times put this together. 12 departing lawmakers tell us what Congress is really like. Even the insiders are fed up with Washington. To understand why, we put the same 8 questions to House and Senate members in both parties who are on their way out looking for patterns and prescriptions to get a handle on the place. Corruption, money, perks, frustration, solutions. Hear what they said about it all. We're going to play their responses to these 8 questions, but I'm going to start with you, Bill. And I'd love to hear from our listeners as well. Text us in 710 KNUS app. Be sure to give us your first name and where you're from. What's one word you would use to describe Congress today?
Dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional would be your word.
Yeah, that'd be mine.
Mine is corrupt.
Okay.
Because I think they're the whole system. Maybe rigged is a better word, but I think the whole system.
This question: how are you defining that?
Rigged.
Yeah, how are you defining it?
In the sense that you get elected by kind of being forward facing with your constituents, right? You go to Lincoln Day dinners, you go do these meetings, these coffees, you're all over the place, right? You're right there. Once you get there, what keeps you there are the checks from lobbyists and special interest groups.
Yeah.
And so you might show up and shake some hands and say hi and kiss some babies and all that stuff. But what you're really delivering at the end of the day is what the lobbyists and special interest groups want you to deliver.
Oh, yeah. Been that way for decades, though.
Yeah. So that's my one word to describe Congress that it is rigged, corrupt, and really geared more towards serving special interests. So here's the answer from these insiders. Republicans, Democrats, you're going to recognize some voices in here. So 12 different lawmakers, including Ken Buck and Doug Lamborn.
One word I'd use to describe Congress, I would say
dysfunctional,
chaotic.
It's just very challenging.
Difficult. Last year, when the Republicans took over the House of Representatives, they passed 27 bills, which made us the most unproductive Congress in any given year in the United States history.
Dysfunctional.
Tense. Dysfunctional. Probably a very popular word that you're hearing.
Who's Ken?
Misunderstood. The misunderstanding is that people are purposefully trying to not accomplish goals on behalf of the American people. That's just not true.
Potential. The institution right now is punching below its weight.
Challenging.
Broken.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all fair.
What's your response to that, Bill?
Yeah, they're right.
Yeah.
It's broken. It's dysfunctional. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't
Absolutely.
necessarily
Doesn't work.
look at the lack of bills as dysfunction, though. I love the fact that Congress only passed 27 bills.
Well, here's the thing is, I bet you would disagree if it was the Republicans that were in charge of both the House and the Senate. You'd probably have a whole different perspective on legislation that you wanted to be passed or not. That it's just the system inside of Congress for me is broken. We have decided that we are playing sports ball, and that we're going to decide what goes on based on jerseys, rather than going after what the functionality of how the Congress was put together was. But that's okay. It's on us. We're free to do that. We can be as dumb as we want to be.
Here's Josh. He texted in a hyphenated one word, anti-American. I love Josh. Yeah, give us details on that. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. What's one word you would use to describe Congress today? Here's the second question, and I think I already answered it. Is Congress corrupt?
It depends on, again, how I would define corruption. I understand how you defined it earlier, and I'm not certain I would go that far and say that it's necessarily corrupt. But I agree with you that functionally, how it is working based on the more dollars you have means you have a larger voice and a larger share. Yeah, I also believe that it's no longer about representation. I don't think that's what they go to Congress about anymore.
I agree. I agree entirely with you. 4944 texted in on the question, what's one word to describe Congress today? Useless. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Here's the answer from 12 departing lawmakers, Republican and Democrats, to the question, is Congress corrupt?
Congress is absolutely not corrupt.
No, I don't see the corruption.
Both Democrats and Republicans, by and large, are just trying to do what we believe we need to do for our districts and for our constituents.
I think that there are parts of our system that are corrupting to the general atmosphere.
There is undue influence for special interests, absolutely.
Some people do tend to favor large business and special interests.
Big corporations and special interests.
Tsunami of money that comes in from special interest groups.
And that is a form of corruption. There's no question.
I think there's too much money in our political system.
I was told at the beginning that I had to raise $250,000 if I wanted to be on certain committees. And if I wanted to be on more important committees or committees with broader jurisdiction, I needed to raise even more money. Buying a committee seat is not something that most Americans know that members of Congress have to do.
The number of times over the course of the 11 plus years that I've heard one of my colleagues say, I agree with you on that, but I could never vote that way because of my fear of a primary, is concerning.
Citizens United was a horrible decision by the Supreme Court that held corporations had the rights as individuals to make contributions in our campaign. It led to the floodgates of a lot of special interest dollars coming into campaigns without really knowing who was contributing those dollars.
I have been a big supporter of campaign finance reform.
We need campaign finance reform.
Change the way campaigns are funded in America, and definitely by demanding disclosure of this dark money.
I studied campaign finance reform in grad school. And
I'm sorry.
Anytime you adjust it, people just find ways around it.
Oh, of course.
It's just we had the McCain Feingold campaign finance reform, and then they went over here and gave, and then they give over here and give. It's just the way it works. So, but that's where I go. All right, New York Times, you're leaning a little bit more on liberal side there with regards to some of the corruption. But question to our listeners. I want to hear from you. Is Congress corrupt? Let's go to the phone lines. Greg, Congress, one-word description. What would you call it?
Well, polarized is the word that I would use, and certainly to an extent, our Congress is corrupted by money, as you've illustrated there. Yeah. But I want to share with you why I'm optimistic about the future of our Congress.
Please.
And it relates to Roe v. Wade and Dobbs. And this is not a discussion about abortion, because that's actually not an issue that I care that much about. But what Roe v. Wade did was transferred legislative authority from Congress to the Supreme Court. And so the job of Congress at that point became get elected, get in the majority so we can appoint Supreme Court justices and pass the laws that we want. Dobbs, here's an interesting statistic you should be aware of. Prior to Roe v. Wade, our Constitution was amended on an average of every 17 years. A new amendment would be passed to the Constitution. Since Roe v. Wade,
zero.
Not one time has it even been proposed, because there was no longer necessary for Congress to come together and legislate. The job became take over the Supreme Court and force the laws that you want.
Yeah.
The Dobbs decision reverses that and says, nope, the court only rules on laws as they are written. And if we now, and it took a while for Roe v. Wade to go into effect and for people to realize the landscape. And it's going to take a little while for people to understand the landscape, that the job of legislating is back with the legislature. But when they do, I am hopeful we'll get back to the days of Reagan and Tip O'Neill. We disagree, but we've got to come together and hash this out and come up with solutions.
And Greg,
or we go nowhere.
And Greg, to your point, Neil Gorsuch writes about this in his book, that the biggest problem he sees is the Chevron deference doctrine, which put a tremendous amount of power into the executive rulemaking process. So, for instance, think EPA can just kind of come up with rules that aren't. And Ken Buck talked about this in his book about draining the swamp, that these branches aren't meant to be co-equal. Yes, they have checks and balances, but the legislative branch, directly elected from the people, should have the most power. And that seems to be what you're arguing, Greg.
Right. And I think we're heading back to that. I think Trump is going to get elected and try and quote unquote drain the swamp, which means removing some of that executive branch authority. And yeah, I do. I see a potential. I'm not guaranteeing it's going to happen, but I see a potential for us to return to rule of the people in that way.
Now,
and
Greg,
I'm optimistic.
I want to explore something there that you just said, that you believe that if we get a second Trump presidency, that you believe that he's going to roll back some of that executive order and executive powers. Why do you come to that conclusion, given in a Reese dictator on day one? Wouldn't he embrace the executive authority rather than defer against it?
Yeah. I mean, I understand your point, and I think some of that will happen. I think his short-term goal is payback, but his long-term goal is breaking down. So in his, you're asking me to read his mind, or at least to be accountable for what I said. I think in his mind, he wants his pound of flesh and then cut the arm off.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
So when he was president, when it came to administrative rulemaking, for any one new rule, you had to repeal at least, I think it was 2 or 3 old rules. So it was, we're going to cut down some of the rulemaking process within the executive branch, so it wasn't so burdensome. Greg, I appreciate the call. Yeah. Question we're asking here, the New York Times interviewed 12 departing lawmakers and asked them a series of questions. What's one word you would use to describe Congress? Second question, is Congress corrupt? We'll get to more questions here in a second, but let's go to Barbara. Line 2, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning to you. I have one word for Congress, that is despicable. I do believe they're extremely corrupt. I was the secretary to the director of a federal law enforcement agency, and I saw a lot of what went on in D.C. Because I lived there and experienced it. The other thing I'd like to say is it broke my heart to hear your previous caller, supposedly a conservative, I would assume, who says, oh, abortion, I don't really care that much about it. The murder of unborn.
Well, I think he was just trying to make a point.
Yeah, he was talking about the abortion ruling rather than discussing abortion. He just wanted to take, he was focusing on the functionality of the Dobbs decision. He said, I don't want to talk about abortion. He wasn't supporting it or wasn't against it. He wasn't taking a position. He just was saying, let's look at that as an example. And he was talking about the functionality of the legislature and the judiciary. He wasn't taking a position on it. So I think it's fair to just, maybe give him some grace and a pass on that, because we don't know really what Greg felt.
All right.
Barbara, can I ask you a question? You mentioned being a secretary to someone in D.C., and you saw corruption. What kind of corruption did you see?
Well, I was secretary, I'll tell you, I was secretary to the director of the U.S. Marshal Service. And the kind of things that I saw, well, one, going back to the FBI, which suddenly everybody thinks it's dysfunctional. We had, at that time, the Department of Justice and the FBI, which was always its own entity, did not care to work with other agencies, did not share information. Let's talk about 9/11, and just did their own thing. And another thing, this is almost comical if it weren't so pathetic. We shared the building at the time with DEA, and there was a whole big uproar because DEA made a ruling that the agents could no longer drink during lunch, and everybody had a fit. And I'm like, holy Toledo, should they even have been doing that in the first place?
That's good.
Well, Barbara, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We'll continue this conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. What's one word you'd use to describe Congress today, and is Congress corrupt? I want to talk to you about my friends at the law offices of Dan Caplis, not corrupt, good men, working hard for justice and righteousness. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar jury verdicts in motor vehicle crash cases. Dan and his partner, Babar Wahid, won the largest truck crash jury verdict in Colorado history. The firm's history of 7- and 8-figure settlements and verdicts speaks for itself. They are a firm where good people from all walks of life, without regard to ability to pay, receive the level of legal representation that the rich and powerful enjoy. Dan Caplis Law believes that talk is cheap, experience counts, results matter. The firm would be happy to share with you its track record of outstanding jury verdicts and out-of-court settlements. Dan Caplis believes that who you hire says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. They suggest that you choose a firm that shares your values. Dan is all about faith, family, freedom. He is the real deal. The firm believes its core values have been the foundation of its historic success. That includes faith, integrity, hard work, and a dedication to righteous causes. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLISLaw.com. He'd be fun to see in Congress. I'd like to see Dan Caplis in Congress. I think he'd do a good job. All right, here was the third question. By the way, here, let's go through some text messages here real quick. Congress is grossly overpaid. They answer that in just a second. Trump will increase the executive power. Hello, COVID. I don't think so. I do think he messed up on COVID. But remember, when it got into administrative rulemaking for the executive branch, he required that anytime you wanted to bring some type of new rule or regulation, you had to cut off at least 2 or 3 other ones. We had to at least attempt to shrink the size of the federal government. It's America last with you, not first. Oh, I think that's responding to Bill gets into these text message fights. All right, here's the third question. What was your most frustrating experience in Congress? Remember, this is 12 exiting congressmen, Republicans and Democrats, members of both the House and Senate. What was the most frustrating experience to you?
I'd have to go through a laundry list of a few hundred.
There are frustrations every day.
We were at a budget standoff over the debt ceiling, and Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden negotiated a budget agreement. Then Speaker McCarthy walked away from that agreement. I've had lots of disagreements with people, but the thing that's most frustrating now is that the environment seems to give permission for people to come to an understanding, to shake hands, and then erase all memory of that deal when it becomes convenient to do so.
What frustrates me is that members tend to say something, make a statement, make a speech that maybe could go viral or get picked up, instead of thinking, well, what's the best conversation I can have here?
One of the most frustrating experiences for me was the antitrust legislation concerning big tech. They have so much money and so much influence on the Hill that we just can't move forward on those issues.
I think the most frustrating thing is when you have 300 co-sponsors to a bill and you still can't get that across the finish line.
I think one of the most frustrating things was when the Republicans were not able to choose a speaker.
And then the frustration of being in the House and being told all the time, this is how you need to vote. The part of me that wanted to stick around because I believed we could get more things done died.
That was Ken.
Ouch.
At the end there.
Ouch.
My belief that I could stick around and get more things done died.
That's not good.
The one thing that stood out to me in that question, and I think it's absolutely true, we don't talk about it as a culture,
is what?
Is the nature of statesmanship.
Oh, yeah.
So when people go there to give viral speeches and get clicks and not necessarily act as a statesman. I think that's a very fair critique.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But then again, I mean, we go back to, what was it, Jesse Waters, Fox News, couple of weeks ago, talked about the idea that he thinks if the government and legislature were shut down and didn't do anything, that would be a better idea. And that's not statesmanship. The idea of grinding it to a halt, the idea, and on both sides, where the extremes say, I'm not going to give up anything unless you give me what I want. That's not statesmanship. That's not how the Congress was set up to function. There's a reason why it was built on compromise, that it didn't say, once you get 51 votes inside of the House, you get to do whatever you want, that everybody else has to shut up. That there's a reason for this, but we have forgotten it. What are you going to do?
What I'm going to do is go to the phone lines. Deborah, line 1, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Deborah.
Morning.
Good morning, guys. Nice to hear you. I was referring to your comment that everyone keeps saying that Trump said he will be a dictator.
On day one.
And I am reading on day one. And I am reading the transcript from the Hannity interview that this was brought up. And he says, you are not going to be a dictator, are you? From Sean Hannity. And he says, no, other than day one. We are closing the border and we are drilling. After that, I am not a dictator. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's completely accurate.
It's in reference to, it sounds like 2 policy issues, closing the border and opening up energy independence in this country.
Yeah. And the point that I was making about that, Deborah, was the idea that given that Donald Trump says that he wants to have dictatorial power on day one, do we then draw the conclusion that his goal during his term is to roll back the executive power? Because that's how he got some of the things accomplished during his first term that everybody liked, that everybody said was so positive for the country, he did through executive order. So the question I have for you is, given that statement and given his previous administration, should we assume that Donald Trump's goal in office is to roll back executive power?
I'm sorry, I don't really have an opinion on that.
That's what we were talking about, though.
I am talking about the fact that you are calling him, that you were saying that he says he's going to be a dictator.
On day one, I was very accurate, Deborah. I was accurate during that conversation. I said on day one, he said he wanted, yes, I was, Deborah.
But only one day. Only one day.
Yes.
On 2 policy issues.
Yes, Deborah.
He wants to be like that for his entire 4 years.
Deborah, Deborah, I understand your point, and I am conceding your point. I agree with your point, and the point that you're making is exactly the same point I made with the caller. But it leads me to the question, the same question that I've asked you, that you said you don't know, is if he wants to have dictatorial power on day one, and given the number of executive orders he leaned on during his previous administration, should we then assume he wants to roll back executive power? That's a fair question. Then I did accurately outline Donald Trump's position on day one. So what's your feeling on that? Do you think he is trying to
Well-
roll back executive power? Or do you think he'll lean into it?
Who has said that he wants to roll back executive powers?
The caller,
I do.
and Jeff did.
I know he does.
That was their
I know
premise.
That's part of Project 2025.
So do you agree with Jeff? Is he trying to roll back executive power?
Then if that's what he has said, then I will take his
But
word for
Trump
it.
hasn't
I have
said
not
that. Jeff has
heard
said
him
that.
say that.
Yeah, I have not heard it either.
Yeah.
Jeff said that, not
Well,
Trump.
it gets into executive rulemaking and all that stuff. And when he was the president, he implemented, especially as it relates to regulations. If you wanted to implement a new regulation from like EPA, for instance, or BLM or something like that, you had to show where you were going to remove 2 or 3 other ones. So, there was a concerted, direct effort to take away some of the regulations and rulemaking power of the executive branch.
Just the ones
Deborah,
you didn't like.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks so much for the call. Deborah's line's open 303-696-1971. We're talking about this New York Times exit interview they did with 12 departing members of Congress. Here are the first 3 questions. What was one word you would use to describe Congress today? Is Congress corrupt? And what was your most frustrating experience? Text us in how you would answer those questions. What's one word you would use to describe Congress today? Guys, for those of you with a full head of hair, congratulations. Studies show that one of the most attractive physical features is a full head of hair. Want to know the least attractive and most aging? Well, it's hair loss. No amount of car, house, or success can make up for that thinning or balding, as it leaves the greatest lasting physical impression. It doesn't have to be that way. Advanced Hair has the quick one-day solution to your hair loss. No more expensive pills, special shampoos, just your very own natural hair guaranteed to grow. And with Advanced Hair, your new hair can grow for life. Advanced Hair has improved tens of thousands of lives, including top radio personalities across the country. Did I mention your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day? For your free consultation, call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. And if you qualify, get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Visit advancedhair.com for more information. That's advancedhair.com. All right, here's the fourth question. What's the best perk of the job?
To me, the best part of this job is the fact of who you get to be with every day.
You get to go on some congressional trips when you're sitting across from the Prime Minister of Japan. That's pretty cool.
We get to see demonstrations of technology at laboratories.
You're talking to experts who are shaping the future, and you get to talk to 4 or 5 of them in a single day.
The house gym.
The house gym.
The house gym is great. I wish I took more advantage of that.
Now, it's only about a C+ YMCA, but it is 100 feet away from your office.
The first time I went to the White House and met the President of the United States, I was really over the moon.
Well, it's pretty cool to go to the White House Christmas party and meet the president, I've got pictures now with 3 presidents, President Obama, President Trump, and just recently President Biden.
I think there are a lot of perks that I am really irritated by and I shun. I don't want people calling me congressman. I don't want people holding the door for me.
The most amazing part about my job as a United States congressman is every time I'm driving up to the Capitol and I see that beautiful, iconic dome.
Capitol gleaming in the sun. It is like to die for.
And every day I sort of pinch myself and say, I'm here, I'm doing this.
I love the history of the Capitol building and I like giving tours. There's a Ronald Reagan statue. In one layer of that statue is pieces of the Berlin Wall. And so I have people rub their finger around that.
The coolest thing about this job is that I had the same job as John Lewis. And when John was dying, he picked me, little Dan Kildee from West Genesee Street in Flint, Michigan, to cast his vote for him. That's not a perk. That's a privilege. And if it were just for the fact that I'll go for the rest of my life having become a friend of and a partner to John Lewis, it will have been worth all the stuff that we have to deal with here. Didn't want to use a more colorful word in that context, but I could have.
That is 12 departing lawmakers telling Congress what it is really like. How would you answer? Well, I guess we couldn't answer that question, but how would you answer the top one? What's one word you would use to describe Congress today? Text message here See if I can find it. Our text messages jump all around because you're always commenting back.
Sometimes now.
There's one about being slaves that I'm trying to find. And there are different levels of being slaves. There it is. There were different ranks within slavers. You had masters, you had the elites, you had the regulars. I don't know. Thanks for the text, 3090. What would you use one word to describe Congress? And the second question, is Congress corrupt? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he is determined to secure a ceasefire that brings Israeli hostages home from Hamas captivity. Blinken is in Tel Aviv on Wednesday visiting Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's been pressing Middle Eastern leaders to help implement a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas after Israel reportedly made some concessions. Netanyahu, however, is still vowing to carry out an assault on the city of Rafah, irrespective of any truce. Riot police in the Georgian capital Tbilisi have cracked down on protesters, demanding the government drop a controversial foreign agent law in a movement seen as a battle between Russian and European influence. Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
Well, we saw running battles with police in the streets of the Georgian capital, police deploying tear gas and water cannons against protesters who want the government to drop a Kremlin-style foreign agent law that would require media organizations and NGOs to declare themselves as foreign agents if more than 20% of their funding comes from abroad. It's seen as a battle between Russian and European influence, and here in Brussels, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told me that Georgia was amazing and that she supports those pro-European protesters.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's going to be nice today. 68 degrees, some PM showers, some afternoon showers. Tomorrow gets cooler. 60 degrees, showers. Friday, 65, a few afternoon showers. And then Saturday, we start to climb out of it. Partly cloudy on Saturday, 70 and 77, warm and dry on Sunday. Looking forward to that. That's a nice weekend. Talking about this series of exit interviews the New York Times did with 12 departing lawmakers. They tell us what Congress is really like. First 4 questions. What was one word you used to describe Congress today? Is Congress corrupt? What was your most frustrating experience? What was the best perk of the job? Here's probably the second most important question. Did you make a difference?
Definitely.
For sure.
I really feel like I was able to make a difference.
66 bills.
Hundreds of amendments.
A couple $100 million from the water crisis in Flint.
Dealing with transportation, land use.
On national defense.
Healthcare issues.
I was the first woman to chair the health subcommittee.
Solve the surprise medical billing problem.
Expanding rural broadband.
Permit the Smithsonian to build a Latino museum.
Help write a bipartisan infrastructure bill that has the biggest investment ever in climate provisions.
Managed to bring mental health into the light.
I was responsible for passage of cancer screening coverage under Medicare.
Some of the bills that I carried for 8 and 10 years before they came to fruition.
These are things that have had a profound effect.
It really appears to the public that all we do is fight, when the reality is on 98% of the issues, there's great bipartisanship and people work together well and come up with good answers.
So I really reject the notion that you can't get things done.
So I hear Ken Buck was the second to last voice there. 98% is bipartisan and we get things done. But then he also says like he's leaving because he feels like he can't get anything done.
Yeah. And I don't think they get a lot done. I think they're just, again, and it's because of how we're playing the game now. It's that we can't give an inch to anybody else. Otherwise, we're somehow losing. Rather, the core of it should be, and I understand that they all say, I'm going there and I did good. And there are some decent examples there. But as a whole, did you make your constituents' lives better and easier?
That's the number one question.
The grand answer for the majority of them is no. And we can go back at least a decade in Congress. And that answer is a resounding no. So I still feel that both parties, all of y'all in Congress, are failures, complete failures at your jobs. If we had a real performance review, not having to go up in front of voters, if you were in an industry in where you had an annual or semi-annual performance review, most of you'd be fired because you suck at your jobs.
So on that note, here's the next question. What should a Congress member's salary be, Bill?
They should give us money because they are a drain
The average
on
income
society.
in my district is $55,000.
Here, I'll play that.
Look, the average income in my district is $55,000 a year. A congressman makes $174,000 a year.
If I go back to my district where the average salary in some places is $32,000 and I say I don't make enough when I make $174,000, they would go ballistic. I'd be out of office in a heartbeat. And yet trying to maintain 2 places to live, have clothes in 2 places, have a car in 2 places, it's very difficult.
When I got to Congress, I realized, holy smokes, that comes out of my pocket without reimbursement.
And you're not allowed to write off any of the expenses.
I've had a roommate every time I've rented an apartment. Upwards of 100 Congress members actually sleep in their office because it's expensive.
Washington's expensive.
All of us ought to be concerned about the future in terms of who can afford to do this.
Do you want it to still be the House of the people, or do you want it to be only wealthy people? I think that it's important to have cost of living adjustments.
I think there needs to be at least an inflationary adjustment.
I think it should at least keep up with inflation.
It should probably go up with the cost of living.
Congress works better when you have a broad swath of the American people being able to run and get elected. I really believe that.
So listening to that, it's not the 174,000 that's the problem. It's the trying to live in Washington, D.C. that's the problem.
I want to see my little tiny violin playing for them. Great. I'm sorry. Here's the reason why. I have zero compassion for them. because of the amount of wealth that is a difference between when you enter Congress to when you exit. Now, this is the idea. All of those issues they have were, in my opinion, nothing more than crocodile tears, because all of y'all end up walking out of there as millionaires. If it was so difficult for you to maintain 2 houses, so difficult for 2 cars, 2 wardrobes, traveling back and forth, then you wouldn't walk out of there being multimillionaires. If your job allows you to amass that amount of wealth that quickly, stop complaining about the paycheck, because guess what? You're not really doing it for the paycheck, are you?
Last one we're going to get to before a commercial break. Congress's future worries. What worries them most about their future? This is where I thought Ken Buck was the best.
We're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
I worry about the future of our democracy.
Are we going to protect our democracy?
The state of our democracy.
You know, I saw it pretty up close and personally on the 6th of January, how fragile it is.
A lot of the concerns I have now are about the geopolitical climate around the world.
Those autocratic regimes around the world.
What worries me most is I'm not giving my grandkids the same country that my parents gave me. Social Security will be bankrupt within a few years. Medicare the same way. We can't sustain $34 trillion of debt. Right now, the incentive is to spend all the money that we don't have and put the burden on our grandchildren because I get to go back to my district and tell people in my district, I got that bridge for you. We improved this interstate highway. We have no spending discipline. Very simple solution. You need to change the incentive structure. For example, members of Congress don't get a salary unless they balance the budget, or they don't get to run for re-election unless they have reduced the amount of spending. Responsible government is the best way to move forward.
I thought Ken was really good on that stuff there. You don't get your salary unless we balance the budget.
I love that idea. I also think if they shut down the government, they don't get paid either.
Right.
They don't get paid. I mean, you don't balance the budget. Yeah, no, not at all. You don't get a paycheck. I love that idea.
We have a text message here, 7061, term limits, all exclamation points.
Now,
Here's the concern I have about term limits.
Yeah, let me think. Yeah. Let's talk
Because
about that.
Colorado has term limits. And guess who has the most power down at the state capitol?
Who?
Lobbyists.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they actually know it works. And how the process works and how to get bills done and processes done. Because when you, every 4, 6, 8 years, you're swapping out different members, well, you're getting people that have no experience in many ways about how to run a bill. So a lobbyist comes, puts their arms around them and says, let me show you. And by the way, will you put this in there for me?
Now, what do you think would be the fix? I have an idea, but what would be the fix for that?
I don't know. I think it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I would remove the lobbyist influence. I would remove their access. I would remove a whole bunch of things I would do to constrain the lobbyists' ability to have that. And the reason being this. I understand how businesses and special interests get to talk to the legislators. You know who doesn't have a special interest group? You know who doesn't have a lot of money? You and I. Yeah. You and I, the voters, where they are supposed to represent us, not the special interests, not the lobbyist clients.
Yep.
Yet we have no say-so in this conversation. So for me,
Other
the
than
correction,
voting.
but the correction would be to eliminate the lobbyists doing that. Here's the funny part about the term limits. I always find it interesting how many people are very much in favor of term limits until they get into the office.
Yeah.
Then
right.
that changes.
Like,
and
I kind of like this job. I
Exactly.
like people opening doors for me.
And here's the reason why, I think. Because once you realize, again, my term, not yours, once you realize what a scam this job is, especially at a federal level, you will never give it up. Because I go back to my fundamental principle that getting elected to Congress is the highest profile, best paying job in America that you can get without being able to show a single shred of ability to do the job. Nobody else is going to put you into a job with that much power, with that much pay, with that much control, without asking whether or not you even can do the job. For us, doesn't matter. So what do you think we're going to get?
We'll continue this conversation you're listening to, The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
All right, when we come back in the 9 o'clock hour, Joshua Sharp's going to join us. Is this organization, the ICC, going after Israel leaders? Are they going to indict them on war crimes? What is going on here? We'll get the word from him. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Nine a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver. We are the radio station you call to give it to us. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes a little crazy. It's another beautiful day in America's greatest city. We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where your voice is heard loud and clear. You go to any of the other stations, you're going to hear a monologue, you're going to hear scripted news, but here on Colorado, on 710 KNUS in Colorado, your voice is a part of the conversation. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up just after the news, Joshua Sharp with the Independence Institute. The International Criminal Court has not quite yet issued arrest warrants in response to the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel and the war on Gaza. But over the past few days, this is from the Washington Post, amid a preemptive backlash from government officials, Israel media has reported that arrest warrants from the global court were imminent against Israel. Senior Israeli figures, including the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and Defense Minister. This could be a real problem. So we're going to dive in to that issue with Joshua Sharf here in just a second. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. 54 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 60s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, Denver police looking for 2 suspects who allegedly beat a victim at a light rail station on Denver's west side. It happened at the Perry Street station at about 9 o'clock last night. You can see the suspects at Metro Denver Crime Stoppers. SWAT activity in Aurora just over an hour ago, and a shelter-in-place warning lifted in one neighborhood after a SWAT team served a narcotics-related search warrant in the 1800 block of South Olathe Street in the Stone Ridge Park neighborhood. Police expect to be in the area for several hours. From the Auraria campus in Denver to Columbia University to USC, UCLA, UT Austin, hatred of Jews and Israel being promoted by useful idiots on campuses, and plenty of paid outsiders making it all happen. Nearly 100 arrested in Southern California last night. Hamilton Hall at Columbia cleared out last night also, but the chaos growing in other places around the country. One Jewish student at UT Austin puts it perfectly.
I'm trying to do my final in the background. I hear they're chanting for the death of Israel, the death of Jews. It's completely unacceptable. If they want peace, they don't stand for anything like it. Israel is a democratic state. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. This is, at the end of the day, they don't want Jews on campus. They're trying to scare us off. They don't want us here.
Are you going to be scared off?
No, absolutely not. We will not follow our history. We will not be led like lambs to the slaughter.
And then there's this clown, Mr. Lip Gloss, Kamani James from Columbia University.
Zionists, they don't deserve to live comfortably, let alone Zionists don't deserve to live.
Still haven't suspended him. He's no danger to anyone, is he?
I'd be, as someone who worked at a university, you are oftentimes very proud of your alumni. You like to showcase them. You put them.
Sure.
Gosh almighty. I mean,
he'll be in the magazines, the alumni magazines in the future, right?
The statement about the idea that whatever group it is doesn't have a right to live. I would love to have a conversation with him about that and how he gets to that conclusion.
Yes.
That's scary.
It is frightening. I mean, I don't know what's happened in his past, but maybe we can get him on the show and you can have a really...
I will tell you what happened in his past. He grew up in government-run schools.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
absolutely. I guarantee you that guy was not homeschooled or private Christian schooled.
I'm going to roll the dice and say he didn't have a lot of love in his family either, more than likely. But who knows? It's dangerous is what it is. Colorado Representative Ron Weinberg hears Jew hatred from those who aren't in college at the state capitol. And for bonus points, he's gaveled down at the state capitol if he uses words like alien. Free speech is squashed.
I'm pretty used to it at this point. I mean, when I go down there as a Jew, I get gaveled down too. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty consistent. The suppression of speech is real, and they don't want a different opinion. They make it very clear that they own the room, and they don't want a differing opinion on it. They want to pass their bills as quick as possible, and they want us to sit down and shut up.
He joined the fellas last hour. Former President Trump doesn't have to be in court today.
If you're involved in a dispute such as this with another party and you just can't seem to work it out, don't take the law into your own hands. You take them to court.
Dun. So he'll be on the campaign trail in Wisconsin and
when you're really concerned that he may win as president of the United States, then you take him to court.
Take him to court. Absolutely. I bet you Billy remembers that guy's name. Maybe.
Oh.
Come on.
I can't not
for $100.
No, I'm too ill to figure that one out at this point.
That's true. You're still
what is
under
it?
the weather.
Yeah.
Doug Llewellyn.
Oh yeah, Doug Llewellyn. Oh man.
People's Court.
Yep.
Judge Wapner. That was a great show. Here's another reminder for Coloradans to watch out for bears. Wildlife officials say the animals are out of hibernation and looking for food. At least 110 reports have already been filed this year of bear activity in 21 counties. Neighbors are urged to bear-proof their homes with trash cans that can't open, keeping garage doors closed, cleaning the grill after each use, and picking up any fruit that falls off trees.
Nathan McKinnon on the puck. McKinnon back to the point for Taves with a shot, scores! Taves with a shot, and Nico Rantanen got his stick on it.
Avs are on fire. They beat Winnipeg last night 6-3, headed to the Western Conference semis. The Nuggets T-Wolves on Saturday in game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals in the NBA. And the Rocks blew a 5-run lead, and they lost in extra innings in South Florida 7-6 to the Marlins, and they're back in action this afternoon. It is 50 in Lakewood, 52 in Littleton, and 54 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. Power Hour on Wednesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy to cloudy. Highs upper 60s to near 70 today with a chance of showers and a few thunderstorms this afternoon. Overnight, we could have some showers. Lows in the lower 40s. Partly cloudy and cooler near 60 Thursday with afternoon showers and thunderstorms near 40 Thursday night. Low to mid 60s with scattered showers and thunderstorms likely for Friday into Friday evening. A break in the weather for the weekend. Meteorologist Don Day on 710 KNUS.
Got a text message here from one of our listeners, Karen in Edgewater, just reminding us today's the last day if you want to purchase a ticket for an evening with Governor Kristi Noem.
Oh, nice.
So much there.
That is. Yeah.
So much there. A great evening, so long as you're not a dog or a goat. Otherwise, run away. But Kristi Noem is at the Jefferson County Republican Party fundraiser, the Lincoln Day fundraiser. It's Saturday, May 4th. That's this Saturday, 6 p.m. Marriott Denver West. And you can go to jeffcorepublicans.org, I believe is the website, to purchase your tickets there. But today's the final day, jeffcorepublicans.org. You know what Kristi Noem's actions did for somebody else?
No, what?
You know, her action of shooting a goat and shooting a dog.
No, what?
Gave Michael Vick the idea he might be able to get back into politics.
That is true. Good job. Nicely done.
All right. Washington Post reporting Netanyahu said Friday that the attempts by the Hague-based International Criminal Court to undermine Israel's right to self-defense would never be accepted, arguing that it would set a dangerous precedent that threatens the soldiers and officials of all democracies. On Sunday, Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz cautioned Israel embassies around the world to bolster security in immediate preparation for a wave of severe anti-Semitism if arrest warrants were issued. What is going on here? I texted my friend Joshua Scharf to give us some insight. Joshua's with the Independence Institute. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on. And by the way, there's no truth to the rumor that Jeffco Republican fundraiser is being co-hosted by the Dumb Friendly.
Yeah, I think they're running away from that. You know, it was a bad insight early on in Kristi Noem's life when she clapped at the end of Old Yeller. There's just so many. You could just, there's so much there. All right. Joshua, what is going on with this International Criminal Court? And I can understand how this could happen because I used to represent persecuted Christians at the United Nations, and I went to the United Nations in Geneva one time. And so I spent a day in the UN Human Rights Council, spent a day there. And for the 8 hours or so that I was there, 7 hours and 30 minutes of it was country after country, particularly in the Middle East, and including North Korea and China and Russia, getting up and bashing Israel. So I understand that it's like these international organizations just get around and seem to fixate, even in the midst of all their human rights violations, fixate on Israel. But can you give us some insight into the ICC and what they're trying to do here?
Yeah, I mean, just to mention what you were talking about, the Human Rights Commission. There are dozens, I suppose, of ongoing conflicts around the world, but there is only one that has a permanent agenda item at the Human Rights Commission, and I give you no points for guessing which one it is.
I mean, look, Joshua, I walked out of the room of the UNHCR, and I felt like I needed to take a shower. It was so disgusting, the anti-Semitism that reeks at the United Nations. I don't think we should give them a dime anymore. But yeah, so how is the ICC fixated on Israel right now?
Yeah, so the ICC actually has got they hired, it was a British-based attorney. I think his last name was Khan, and he's British, but he was hired to try and rehabilitate the organization. There was a sense that it had gone off the rails a little bit. And so what has happened is that there is a possibility that they could blow that rehabilitation and just destroy what's left of their credibility by issuing arrest warrants for Netanyahu, as the news at the top of the hour said, Netanyahu and perhaps even military leaders, that on the charges of war crimes. And the argument being obviously that, self-defense constitutes a war crime if you're Jewish, I suppose. Anyway, so Israel has not signed on to the ICC. And before people say, well, that's a terrible thing. Well, neither has the U.S. And the reason is for obvious sovereignty issues. We don't want the U.S. Is involved, and as the world's major superpower, and we have troops all over the place, and we're involved in countries all over the place, and at low levels, even at low levels, we don't want their actions to be subject to the jurisdiction of the ICC. And it's worth pointing out that a lot of the countries who have judges on there are not necessarily themselves governed well by the rule of law. So the ICC itself, that's part of the reason that it has a credibility issue. Well, Israel didn't sign on for obvious sovereignty issues. That the fear being that if they submitted themselves to the jurisdiction of the ICC, that the rules and what the ICC interprets to be international law would be unfairly and unequally enforced. And the prescience of that is obvious now. So that's the reason that Israel has not signed on to the ICC. So then, of course, the obvious question is, well, why do they care then? If there's some international arrest warrant issued for a leader whose country does not submit to that and has no authority, therefore the ICC doesn't have any authority over them, why do they care? Well, it's because other countries who have submitted to the ICC might execute those arrest warrants, might decide to go ahead and execute those warrants if, for instance, Netanyahu were to visit Europe, or Gantz were to visit someplace, say, trying to find alternate sources of armaments, then some other country might decide to execute those warrants. From a military point of view, military leaders, it makes it very difficult then to conduct joint operations or to conduct joint training exercises. So it really would limit Israel's ability to conduct high-level diplomacy if something like that were to happen. The Biden administration, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and while the United States and Israel are not members of the ICC, guess who is? 2015, the Palestinian Authority joined the ICC as a member. So imagine you're in a conflict with someone, and now you can appeal to a court that you're a part of, but your opponent's not a part of, to get them to issue warrants against your opponent. And if they go anywhere in any of these countries that are members of the International Criminal Court, well, then your opponent can get arrested. So I get the frustration.
Well, it's not just that. Unfortunately, what's happened. So that's kind of the immediate effect of what would happen. Now, the game within a game here is that under the Trump administration, the U.S. made it clear that any countries or any individuals who helped cooperate with ICC sanctions or ICC warrants against Israeli leaders, any individuals who cooperated with that, would be subject to U.S. sanctions. And therefore, that sort of provided an umbrella of protection. The Biden administration, seeing yet another opportunity to strong-arm Israel into stopping the war short of victory, and it believes, that is, the U.S. administration believes, then opening a window to impose its own reordering of the region. That's gone well over the last 100 years, by the way. Anytime somebody tries to do that, but in order to forestall an Israeli invasion of Rafah, has in effect said, we might or we might not. They're threatening, in effect, not to prevent the ICC from doing this through the same means that the Trump administration has used. And so they see this as just another piece of leverage against Israel.
Now, Joshua, I'm going to take the contrarian side of this. And by the way, we're talking with Joshua Sharp of the Independence Institute about the International Criminal Court that may be issuing, and hasn't yet, but may be issuing warrants against the leaders of Israel. The argument in the 90s was that you had these conflicts that resulted in genocide: Bosnia, Croatia, Rwanda, and we need tribunals to hold these government leaders accountable. What's wrong with the ICC doing that?
So, again, in principle, it sounds like a good idea. The problem is, how do you enforce this thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear that whatever Israel has done, whatever Israel has done, the thing that kicked this off, October 7th, surely qualifies.
Yeah, right.
As a war crime. Surely qualifies as something that can be held under this. So tell me, what force is going to go in and get Sinwar out, or get Mohammed Derry out, and have them stand trial? What force is going to hold them accountable? Because right now, there's only one force capable of doing that, and that's the force that people want to haul in front of the ICC and claim that they're guilty of war crimes. So, in effect, what happens is the open societies end up paying the price, unless they're permitted to go in and do what they need to do in order to enforce this stuff, or to extract the people who are actually guilty of war crimes.
Now, the press secretary for Joe Biden said that there's ICC has no jurisdiction in America, or no jurisdiction with Israel, seeming to kind of brush it off like this isn't going to really happen. Should Jews, Israelis, be concerned about possible warrants coming from the ICC?
Well, like I said, Israel seems to be taking it pretty seriously. And again, I think the reason is that their concern is that while the ICC doesn't have jurisdiction over Israel, and Israel isn't required, because it's not a signatory to this treaty, to enforce ICC orders, other countries that are may see it as an opportunity, or even potentially in good faith as a requirement to enforce those. And it would end up limiting, like I said, could end up limiting the travel of Israeli leaders.
Yeah, and to your point, Joshua, and I've seen it, there's a lot of countries that just hate Israel. They're just purely anti-Semitic. They get up there day after day, hour after hour, like North Korea, for instance. North Korea, in the midst of all of its human rights violations, I was in the room, they got up and bashed Israel for a good hour or so. And you're sitting there going, come on, guys. But talk about the concern of anti-Semitism riots that could take place. So if ICC goes out there and the uninformed voter, the person scrolling TikTok, sees The International Criminal Court has launched human rights violation warrants against Israel. Well, they're going to think that Israel did something wrong. And that could spur a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism. And Israel seems to be very concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a smart move by the foreign ministry to prepare embassies and consulates for that potential. I mean, you certainly are seeing it here on college campuses, and as you said, what ends up happening is that when were arrest warrants to be issued, it would, at some level, validate these prejudices that people have to begin with, and so then the ICC is doing this. We're going to come, and it creates a target. It ends up making embassies and consulates and even cultural institutions a target. One thing that I think is important, and what I kind of like to emphasize in terms of the message, and I got a question from a friend of mine. We were just talking back and forth about this, and it was, well, what messaging is effective? What's the kind of messaging that we ought to be seeing? And the answer is, listen, I mean, if you're just talking about outright anti-Semitism, there's not a whole lot you can do with people who actually believe this stuff. The long-term threat is that the longer it stays kind of trendy, the longer that it gets, then the more it gets baked into people's sort of the things that it gets baked into people's opinions, even if they don't overtly act on it. So the two things that I think are important are, number one, anti-Zionism, that is the opposition to the concept of Israel as a Jewish state, is anti-Semitism. And in part, the evidence for that is that the terms in which people talk about Israel are very much the terms in which anti-Semites talk about Jews. That's number one. Number two, why is anti-Semitism so resistant to the talk about hatred and the talk about prejudice and sort of identity hatred? Why is anti-Semitism resistant to that? And somebody pointed out, I think they're right, that anti-Semitism isn't so much a traditional hatred as it is a conspiracy theory.
That's right.
And as such, and it's a very broad conspiracy theory. So Jews can end up being whatever you want them to be. If you're a communist, well, Jews are the bankers. If you're a capitalist, well, Jews are the communists. If you're, and so there's anti-Semitism basically ends up just becoming, in essence, is a conspiracy theory. What that means is it's not disprovable, right? I mean, if you've ever had to deal with a conspiracy theorist on something that's crazy, like 9/11 was an inside job, the more evidence that you bring that they're just wrong, the more they cling to this position, because it's not amenable to reason. And so what has to be done is that people who are reasonable, which are still the vast majority of Americans, have to be made to see, not necessarily be made. It has to be cast in terms that they'll understand, which is that these people are simply out of their minds. Hopefully, this doesn't become there's nothing news about college students taking on the latest crazy trendy thing. We've all seen it. What's disconcerting, obviously, is that hating Jews is now the latest crazy trendy thing.
Yeah.
And so you don't want that to become baked into to the culture. But it is the sign of a culture that is perhaps more unstable and less secure than we had all feared, than we had all thought, when it begins to accept this kind of thinking.
Joshua Sharp, fellow at the Independence Institute. I want to switch a little bit over to these college protests here. Yesterday and last night, it seemed like police are cracking down and administrations are stepping up to confront these protesters. We've seen that there's an organization building to try to bring these types of protests to the Democrat convention in Chicago. How big do you think this could get? Is this something where, college wraps up and by the end of the semester, this thing kind of fades away? Or is there a bigger movement to really force what I think is happening, force the Democrat Party to abandon Israel and the Jews?
Yeah, no, I think it's the latter. I mean, I think, we've seen before where college kids over the summer suddenly have a certain amount of time in their hands. And one of the problems for the Democrats here is that, they had counted and in fact had been using federal money to organize college students to go out and help organize their vote, to get out the vote work for them. How they had been using federal money is another story, but there are federal programs for voter registration and get out the vote stuff that were available, and they were going to use college students to do that. Well, if they find themselves suddenly, the college students maybe aren't so willing to help them because they are more radical than the administration, that creates a problem for them. In terms of the convention, the timing on that is interesting because in the past the conventions had been sliding later and later in the year, and this year both parties moved them back into August, which means that a lot of the college kids will not be back in school yet. They'll still be on summer vacation, so they may be available to show up in Chicago. One of the things that I think it's important to remember, everybody sort of immediately is sort of, the mind goes back to 1968, right? And again, Chicago, and again, the Democrats having this sort of radical college movement that shows up to protest a foreign involvement, and it ends up with riots in the streets, and it quite possibly costs Humphrey the election. So one of the things to bear in mind, and oh goodness, now of course I'm sitting here driving, I can't remember the fellow's name. The Making of the Theodore White wrote a book, and it's a marvelous book that year, that particular year. He wrote one of these for a number of presidential elections, The Making of the President. And he does this, I think, for 1960 through 1972. I think he does this 60, 64, 68. The one in 68 is fascinating because a lot of the political divides that we see now are there in 1968. And he talks about how television helped undermine Humphrey. So you have these riots going on outside the hall, and it was the way that television did it. You have the specific presentation. Riots going on outside the hall. Humphrey getting the nomination inside the hall. And and they did this on split screen. Now they didn't broadcast. I don't think they broadcast Humphrey's speech while this was going on, but they did like the roll call and all the rest of it on split screen, and it ended up leaving an impression that sort of Humphrey was kind of, was getting the nomination on the strength of the Chicago police, which left kind of an uncomfortable impression with a lot of people, even Middle America. I don't think the networks will repeat that mistake. I think they will find a way to kind of separate this and what's going on outside and something else to do. And I mean, if I'm Biden, what I do is I present myself as the sane, try to reprise the theme of 2020. I'm the normal guy. You don't want these other people. You don't want these other guys in the party. They're the crazies. I'm the one holding the fort against them.
It's so normal out there with the inflation and the protests on college campuses and the illegal immigration and the international strife taking place. It's so normal. Joshua Sharp,
yeah, right.
Fellow of the Independence Institute, thank you so much for giving us an update. We're going to continue to track this. If news breaks with ICC, the International Criminal Court, indicting any of the leadership of Israel, we hope you'll come back and give us some updates on that. But thank you for giving us insight on that. Very informational. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you very much.
Hey, I want to talk to you about something truly special. Ever dreamt of effortlessly transforming your home into a haven of organization and efficiency? Well, listen up, because I got just the solution for you. Roll them out shelves. Let me paint you a picture of my recent experience with Joyce and Brent from Roll 'em Out Shelves. It was like having family walk through the door. Seriously, these folks aren't just professionals. They're meticulous, caring, and very personable. Working with them felt like having my mom and brother right there beside me. Kind, considerate, and always making sure everything was just right. And let me tell you, their attention to detail is unparalleled. They measured every nook and cranny, asked all the right questions, and ensured that every shelf and drawer was tailor-made to fit my needs perfectly. The result? Say goodbye to chaos and hello to beautifully organized shelves showcasing all my essentials. But here's the best part. You don't have to break the bank for this transformation. For less than $1,000, you can embark on your very own home makeover journey with Roll 'em Out Shelves. And let me assure you, these shelves are built to last. Crafted from sturdy Baltic birch, built right here in Colorado, and backed by a lifetime guarantee, you can trust that your space will stay organized for years to come. So what are you waiting for? Give Joyce and Brent, the dynamic duo behind Roll 'em Out Shelves, a call today at 303-475-9601. That's 303-475-9601, or visit their website, rollemoutshelves.com, for your free in-home estimate. That's rollemoutshelves.com. Friends, we'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. The lawyer who allegedly brokered the hush money payment between Donald Trump and an adult film star has testified that he believed the former president was behind the deal. The court also fined Trump for multiple violations of its gag order. Ira Spitzer reports.
The jury at the court here in New York heard from a lawyer named Keith Davidson, who at one time represented adult film actress Stormy Daniels and the Playboy model Karen McDougal, another woman who said she had an affair with Trump. And while Davidson said he worked directly with Trump's former fixer Michael Cohen, it was his understanding that Trump was the driving force behind the alleged $130,000 payment to Daniels, which forms the basis of prosecutors' election interference claims. The former president has denied all wrongdoing and has called the trial, which continues on Thursday, a sham.
The Department of Justice has proposed reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug at a federal level. The Drug Enforcement Administration has recommended that marijuana becomes a Schedule III drug, downgraded from Schedule 1. Softening its designation in federal law would be a significant shift in U.S. drug policy, although it would not legalize it. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Great interview we just had with Joshua Sharp, fellow at the Independence Institute. Is the International Criminal Court seriously thinking of issuing arrest warrants, not against the attacks that took place on October 7th, where they raped and murdered and pillaged innocent people, but actually against Israel's leadership? What is going on here? Is this just another one of those international organizations filled with anti-Semitism? Possibly. I've seen it at the UN Human Rights Council first, directly in front of me. It's disgusting. So if you missed that, go to 710knus.com. Joshua Sharp did a great job on that. It's going to be 68 degrees today. Afternoon showers. Tomorrow gets cooler. 60 degrees with showers. Friday, 65. Some afternoon showers, and then we warm up over the weekend, 70, and then 77, warm and dry on Sunday. Let's go to the phones with Jay. Jay, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Great show.
Thank you, brother.
I wanted to compliment Blake's comment about lip gloss boy.
That was good.
I want to add man bun wearing, chick jean loving, and Birkenstock adorning. That is definitely the type. I want to relate that group of people, not all, because I have kids at that age, as the pouters. They just pout about everything.
That's a good one.
That.
Yeah, a lot of pouting. Yeah, I mean, and that guy, I mean, directly calling for, I mean, people to lose their lives.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's reaching another level, and especially the leadership of these universities. And I think they finally are, hopefully, stepping up and shutting this down. But lip gloss boy, that's a good one.
They would give him flying lessons in Tehran. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Buildings.
Yeah. Did you ever see that?
I've seen the video.
Well, the video of Israel, they have a Saturday Night Live, and they did a comedy sketch of Americans, like leftist Americans, pro-LGBTQ, all that stuff, going to Palestine or Israel to show their support.
Ooh.
And in one case, they're like, come up to the roof. We're going to throw you off. And the guy goes, do you hear that? It's a rooftop party. I'm so excited.
It's a one-way trip, pal. Yeah. You know, just really great that you're using the free airways that we've been given to speak the truth about so many things. I do mean that, where in most parts of the world that maybe I have been to and a lot of us have been to, it is not that way.
Amen. God bless America, and God bless you, Jay. Thanks for being on the program, being a listener. Always appreciate you calling in, brother. Hey, your home is a significant asset, and choosing the right team to help you sell it can be the difference in thousands of dollars in your pocket. I highly recommend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team, the realtors I trust. Empower Home team provides exceptional service, invaluable advice, and employs a unique system to maximize the money you can get for your home. Getting an offer above your home's asking price is great, but you're still leaving money on the table, guys, by not working with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Gay and her experts get their clients an average of $30,000 more. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Their exclusive database is filled with pre-screened buyers ready to make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best price. Here's an unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team today. Call 833-301-SOLD. 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. All right, so we didn't get to all of this, but I want to finish this. Last question. This is a series of exit interviews the New York Times did with 12 departing lawmakers to tell us what Congress is really like. This includes members from the House and Senate and both parties. And we talked about, they answered these questions. What's one word you would use to describe Congress today? Is Congress corrupt? What was your most frustrating experience? What's the best perk of the job? Did you make a difference? What should a Congress member's salary be? What worries you most about the future? Ken Buck did a really good job answering that, primarily getting into debt. Number 8, final question, probably the most important one. How do you fix Congress? Here's 12 members of Congress that are leaving answering that question.
Big question everyone wants to know the answer to is how do you, so that's the big question everyone wants to know the answer to is how do you, quote, fix Congress?
Well, it's the American people that have to fix the Congress.
Well, I think the American people are going to have to fix it.
You'd have to change culture. You have to fix it at the root.
In the 1970s, 80s, members of Congress stayed in D.C.
People would bring their families to Washington, and they would live there. Their kids would go to school,
and their families got to know each other, and they got to know each other on a social basis.
Folks didn't jump on an airplane on a Thursday afternoon and head for home.
And so there was less divisiveness. There was less hate. Now, getting back to the district is essential. So I can see why it's shifted, but the shift has caused some of the dysfunction in Congress. I think what we have to do is, and I actually work with Derek Kilmer, who is also leaving.
One of my very close friends who's also leaving Congress, Derek Kilmer, came up with some really thoughtful structural system changes.
When I became a member of Congress,
sitting down.
I was conscious of the fact that I was joining an organization that, according to recent polling, is less popular than head lice, colonoscopies, and the rock band Nickelback. And so a lot of the time that I've spent here has been trying to figure out, what do you do? And Speaker Pelosi asked me to chair a committee called the Select Committee on the Modernization of Congress, which makes us sound like we were the IT help desk, but we were nicknamed the Fix Congress Committee. And it was a group of 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans, and it went over 4 years. And we looked under the hood of the institution and tried to propose reforms to make Congress work better for the American people. Everything from looking at how Congress can do a better job of recruiting and retaining and having more diverse staff, looking at how Congress uses technology, even looking at some tricky issues like, how do you have a more civil and collaborative institution? And we had one hearing where we invited in a political scientist, management consultant, organizational psychologist, marriage counselor. I thought about bringing in an exorcist. Set up time with this football coach who took over a team that had a notoriously corrosive culture, and he turned it into a winner. And I said, Coach, what do you do when you have players on the team that are like trying to sabotage the team? And he said, well, I cut them. And I said, well, we don't really have that option. And then he asked me a question. He said, how do you do new player orientation? Much of the orientation process is an exercise in keeping the two parties from talking to each other. Okay, Democrats, you get on this bus. Republicans, you get on that bus. And this coach said to me, well, I don't know much about Congress, but it seems like you ought to stop doing that. And this last year, the orientation process actually involved Democrats and Republicans going through orientation together. And listen, someone could look at that and say, hey, bang up job, Kilmer, Congress is clearly fixed. Obviously, that's not the case, although I'm reminded of a conversation I had with the House chaplain during the 15th round of votes for Speaker of the House. And I said, pray harder. She put her hand on my elbow and she said, just imagine how rough things would be if I wasn't praying this hard. So that's sort of how I look at the work of the Modernization Committee. We've passed 202 recommendations, and I actually think over time, you're going to see some positive change within the institution as a consequence.
I'm going to go check those out, the 202 recommendations. That's interesting. I want to check that out. So that was how 12 members of Congress responded to a series of questions from the New York Times. There are lawmakers that are leaving, both Republican and Democrat, both House and Senate. Gives you a little insight into the Capitol. I will say this real quick. They hit on one issue that is really important, is that the members don't live near each other anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When you talk to guys like Bill Armstrong, Hank Brown, who used to go back there, they'd have Bible studies. Their kids would play t-ball together. Yeah. They built community in Washington, D.C. Now, the downside is they're not spending time in their district. So, it's kind of give or take. Guys, generally, we talk about medicine and effective treatments for erectile dysfunction and other men's sexual health issues. Today, I want to talk to you about love. The one you love is the light of your life. And if you're like most men, you want to do whatever you can to nurture your relationship. But if you're suffering from ED, you know the impacts the condition is likely having on you and on your partner. Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic has served the Front Range of Colorado for nearly a decade and has successfully treated tens of thousands of men. Schedule a consult with Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic today Your visit's only $99 and includes a medical consult with a licensed medical provider, a T and PSA test, and if medically advised, a test dose. And if the test dose doesn't work in the office, your visit is free. They have 5 locations in Colorado: Fort Collins, North Denver, Central Denver, Castle Rock, Colorado Springs. Stop dealing with the lack of confidence that ED brings. Call them today at 720-440-7900. That's 720-440-7900, or visit RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. That's RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. We'll be back with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Been a great show. Thanks to everybody that called in and texted and was part of today's Jeff and Bill show. I want to thank especially Representative Ron Weinberg and confessing that he was an illegal immigrant at one point. That was interesting. And also Joshua Sharf giving us the details on is the International Criminal Court going to issue arrest warrants for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu? Wow. We got all those details and more. If you go to the podcast, you can listen to it there, 710knus.com. 710knus.com. Look, we all want a kinder, gentler way to experience wellness and to overcome pain. I'm thriving and fighting back my workout soreness with UltraCur. UltraCur is a patented, non-prescription, natural capsule that works fast. Surveys show that 50% of people using UltraCur find relief within 48 hours, and half of those within 2 hours. Experience UltraCur for free. Go to any Denver Metro Natural Grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. UltraCur is fueled by a patented technology to give you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. If you've tried everything without much success, even other natural curcumin products, you owe it to yourself to try UltraCur today. Get curious, Denver. Head to the Natural Grocers and grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial with no strings attached. Are you wondering about the research? Get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. Coming up next, Charlie Kirk will be taking over the airwaves. You're not going to miss that. I love watching him on college campuses where he takes questions from college students and they debate back and forth. And I've learned, Bill, I'm just not as good as debating as Charlie Kirk is. Otherwise, this might be a different show. Him. Yeah. But, today it's going to be nice, 68 degrees. You're going to get some afternoon showers. Tomorrow's a little bit cooler. Showers ending. But it's only going to be 60 degrees. Friday, afternoon showers, 65. Then we climb out of it. Saturday and Sunday, 70 and 77. Tomorrow, we've got Richard Holtorf on the show. He's going to give us an update happening down at the Capitol. And then we're going to dive into this marijuana descheduling that's taking place. Oh, Jeff and Bill show.